This conference will now be recorded.
How's Kylie feeling?
Well, I thought we had the ears beat, but then last night she started with them again, but today seems okay so far. So,
Well, that's good.
It is the worst.
Yeah.
She just bangs her head hard and screams, and I just can't even imagine.
That's a shame.
But the blow dryer is one solution that is working.
Oh, I'm glad that helped.
Yeah. I don't know why, but it does.
I don't either. Just a girl I worked with told me to do it, and it did help. So, just figured I'd pass it on along.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yaniv, I see you've been out and about, busy.
Yep. It's getting wild.
Yep.
Kathleen's out there a lot too.
Yes, she is.
I'm getting ready to. Now that I have all my wash done,
Yeah. Sure you post all your pictures.
I don't really have any. We didn't do a lot of picture taking this year. Next year.
There you go. I never remember to take pictures. I'm bad.
Well, I posted the one of the sunrise.
I think I saw that one.
Genevieve, have you seen any of my person's her door hangers?
I have not. No.
Okay. I thought I saw one.
We are public and we are ready to go for 5:30.
Okay. Is everyone in attendance, staff, everyone here?
I'm going to go through the list if that's okay.
That would be perfect.
Okay. Councilmember Tatino,
Present.
Councilmember Griffin,
Here.
Councilmember Kingsley,
Here.
Councilmember Barton,
Here.
Councilmember Stokely. I did hear from Councilmember Stokely earlier today. He was going to be a couple minutes late, so he will be joining us shortly. Vice President Sokolowski,
Here.
President Leonard,
Here.
Mayor Aronson.
Here.
Okay, President Leonard, we are all accounted for.
Okay, Steph, if you would like to begin the meeting, please do so.
Of course. So tonight is your budget workshop for fiscal year 2022. I'm going to start by just introducing some overarching budget highlights and some summaries. We will then go into individual department presentations that will include capital requests and recommendations for 2022 and operational line items. Again, we will focus specifically on line items that have increases over 2% when it comes to operational budgets. After the department presentations, we'll go through some areas to focus on, highlights and additional funds, and finalize our meeting with our capital budget worksheet that will give us a final list that will go into public comment. And then we will conclude during that public comment section with any resident questions, and then move into executive session. So just to clarify for anyone else on the call, other than council members and elected officials, we will address any resident questions related to the 2022 budget during the public comment section. And then again, executive session will be dealing with personnel matters, and then we will move into the rest of the budget cycle for the conclusion of the year. So just some timeline and key dates as it pertains to the budget process. Again, this is your budget work session. The budget process started in May. Operational budgets were sent out to department heads. Capital budget expense requests were due into my office by Friday, July 2nd. We then provide, we do a review of those requests, provide feedback to the department heads, and finalize a capital list, which then is packaged and sent to all of the elected officials in July. Operational budgets are due into my office on Friday, July 23rd from all department heads. The compilation of the 2022 budget documents is a coordination between the borough manager's office and the finance department and all of our department heads. That is compiled throughout the month of August. And then, of course, here we are this evening presenting both capital and operational budgets to council and to our residents on Wednesday, September 22nd. We will take any recommended revisions or requested revisions from our elected officials and work through those revisions over the month of October. And then I will be back in front of you for a budget presentation of the full budget on November 3rd. The proposed budget for 2022 and the tax levy will be in front of you for consideration for advertisement on November 17th. And then you will consider approving and adopting the 2022 budget on your meeting on December 15th. Are there any questions pertaining to timeline, key dates, and the process to date? Again, it is, in my opinion, an extremely efficient process that is followed by all department heads in order for us to package everything together, present to you this evening, and close out this fiscal year rolling into 2022 with a set and balanced budget with clear initiatives and goals set by the elected officials. With that, I'll roll into just some overarching fund balance projections on revenues and expenditures for the overarching 2022 budget. Your overall forecasted revenues as of today are $13,249,826. Your forecasted expenditures are $13,288,876. So what does that mean? That means that without reserve transfers, the need to balance the budget is $39,000. If you look at previous years, that is significantly decreased by almost $500,000. So what that means is that over the last 4 years deliberately, this council has made it a priority for the balanced budget between revenues and expenditures without having to draw upon fund balance, and you're down to that $39,000 mark, which is great. When you add in transfers to reserve funds, you're looking at, we always budget $500,000 to go to your OPEB, which is your post-employment benefit trust, and $500,000 for your capital reserve. We wait until the end of the year to determine where we are with our revenues and expenditures to make those transfers, but they are budgeted for. So if you add in the transfers to the reserve funds, then which equates to about $1 million, you're looking at $1,039,050 needed in fund balance your budget. And the good news is that for your fund balance forward projection, your estimated cash position at the end of 2021 fully covers that fund balance needed. You have a strong cash position of around 18.7 million as of the end of August. So the Borough of Conshohocken, we are in a very fortunate position that from a financial position, we are fiscally strong. And the budget that we are presenting to you this evening, the overall percentage increase between 2021 and 2022 is around 2.53%. And keep in mind, as we go through the process, you're looking at an inflation estimate for 2022 between 2 and 2.6%. So we're right within that goal the council usually sets, where we are at 3% or lower in terms of fiscal increase from year to year. And again, as we move through the line items, you'll see where those increases are. So that is my budget overview and summary to kick us off. At this point, we will roll into department presentations. Again, capital requests and recommendations from department heads, as well as any operational line items with increases over 2%. So to start, Kate Cosman will present on communications and special events. So Kate, if you want to turn on your screen and your mic.
Yes.
You.
Screen.
Can you call out the account number for that one?
Yes, so Kate Cosman specifically will be, from an operational perspective, we'll be looking at page 6 of your general fund expenditures, your general fund packet. It's account number 400-531. But Kate is going to start with capital to begin with, and then we'll roll into operational.
Thanks.
Okay. Can everyone see and hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. All right. So good evening, everyone. I will be reviewing my 2022 capital budget requests. So these are specific to filming equipment inside the AV room and the council meeting room, which is responsible for the filming and broadcasting of our public council meetings. So the last time that this equipment was updated was in 2014 when it was initially installed. I'm requesting to update the following equipment, which would equal a total capital expense of $40,122.64. So the first item would be to upgrade and replace our current Laytronics machine. This piece of equipment is what records, stores, and broadcasts our meetings onto our TV channel. And the total cost to replace this machine would be $12,670.25. So the next item would be to replace our AV room PC display and upgrade the overall workstation. So this update would be to improve the overall workstation operations within the filming room while filming is taking place. So this expense or this update would be a total of $925.64. The next expense we have would be to install a new Verizon channel feed. So currently we don't have access to view our Verizon feed or see if there's any issues with broadcasting. This update would essentially just install a new monitor in our AV room that would display the broadcasting feed from Verizon. So the total cost to make this upgrade would be $600.49. So the next upgrade we have would be to install new microphones at the dais inside the meeting room. This would include 9 new microphones for each seated position. The new microphones would be dual flex, which just means that they're easier to adjust and position, and they would have a longer lifespan. To replace all the mics at the dais, it would cost a total of $5,311.61. In addition to the dais mics, I would also be requesting to install new wireless microphones inside the meeting room. So we would go from having 2 available handheld microphones to 6 if this upgrade was made. The total expense here would be $10,209.50. The next item would be to replace our network switcher. This would upgrade and replace the piece of equipment that allows us to switch between digital media that's displayed on the cameras and the larger TVs in the council meeting room. The cost to do this would be $1,711.50. The next item on my list would be to replace the 3 TV displays that are in the Borough Council meeting room. The total cost to replace them would be $8,003.55. And then finally, the last request in my capital budget would be to look at adding a potential Zoom feed to our council meetings. So this item is still being evaluated. I also just want to note that this feed would be for broadcasting purposes only. It would not be interactive and would only allow the public to view our council meetings virtually as they're happening in real time online. The total cost for this installation would be $720.10. So this concludes the capital budget portion for my presentation. Are there any questions before I move on to operational budget?
Kate, I have one. On your last item for installing the Zoom feed, can you go over that again?
Sure. So this would essentially just be a feed of the council meeting room while the meeting is taking place. And we would be able to give a link out to the public to just kind of show the meeting in real time, and it would be displayed online. They wouldn't be able to call in or have public comment. They would need to submit their public comments like before the meeting if they wanted to do so.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kate, it's Tina. So what you're offering here is to equip the meeting room with AV equipment that would allow us to continue to use a virtual type of environment, even though we're back. If we go back and when we go back, it would be the equipment to be able to hear and view virtually the meetings, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
It would be a viewing and a hearing option, but not an interacting option. So
Yep.
you would, we need to stress that. So it would be
Right.
an option to provide the public with an additional viewing capability. But when we are back in person, and if we were to move forward with this Zoom feed option, if there was specific comments or interaction that needed to take place, it would need to be in person and or submitted prior to the meeting.
Right.
So Steph, they wouldn't be able to submit any emails while, like, during the meeting, correct?
Yeah. You're not, what this is, this wouldn't be an interactive process. It's not that. We're just
Okay.
looking at it, you know, with COVID
Right.
comes different evaluations of services. So if there is an option to be able to continue to stream that feed, that's something that we're looking at, but it's not replacing in-person meetings in terms of interaction back and forth.
Interaction. It's still better than what we've had, so.
It's
A lot.
it's an upgrade. It's a different technological option that, you know, as we continue to evolve in terms of our operation, we're looking at different avenues as well.
Okay.
Hey, quick question on the TV displays. What
Sure.
type of enhancements or changes are needed that we need to replace those?
So those TVs were initially installed again in 2014. So it would just be updating and getting new TV systems in place. I know we have some issues a lot with switching between each of those TVs, and there are some technical difficulties. This would hopefully resolve that issue and make it easier to switch between the 3.
Okay, and will they be larger? They're difficult sometimes to see, or will they be larger screens?
They I believe would be around the same size. Yeah, I can check on that, but my understanding is that they would be the same size TVs as we have in there now.
Okay.
And I'm going to assume they would be smart TVs, which would make it easier.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your
Current
TV that would be
technology.
2022 technology, yes.
Right.
Okay.
Kate, just a quick question. would we still be able to put the voting meeting onto the TV channel with all the upgrades?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay, thank
that
you.
would still go up. You're welcome.
Thank you, Kate.
Welcome. Okay, so I'm going just to move into then the operational budget portion. So the only account line that I'm going to be presenting on tonight is 01400 341, which is the community outreach and assistant item or budget line. So this account had more than a 2% increase for 2022. These increases included the additional funds for the annual fireworks display. So we added roughly $5,000 to this event to purchase a larger fireworks display in 2022. So the total budgeted amount for this event alone would be $21,250. The next increase was to account for the new borough events added in 2020 and 2021. So these included the 2 Christmas drive-in movies and the holiday house decorating contest. And then this increase was roughly $7,000. Next, we added funds for food expenses to feed our borough employees and volunteers during events. Specifically during the fireworks, the St. Patrick's Day Parade, Fun Fest, and the Mayor's Arts Festival and Car Show. This increase was $3,000. Lastly, we added funds to account for Narberth ambulance services, and a total of $10,000 was added for these services. So those were the increases that accounted for that budget line. Are there any questions on that?
What is the total amount for that budget line?
In general, so for 2022, I have 102,425.
Okay. Yep, I see it, 20% over.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
Anybody have any questions for Kate?
No.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Lauren, are you on the call?
Hello?
Lauren?
I think that was Anita.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, was it?
She's trying,
No.
there. She's on.
Good evening, Lauren.
You're muted.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you this evening?
Good, thanks.
Okay, so whenever you are ready.
Okay, so as you can see from our capital budget items for the Recreation Services Department, some are repeats from previous years. There are a few new things on here that I do think are pertinent. The basketball courts, I'll start with the top. The basketball courts at Aubrey Collins. As you all know, they do need to be redone. I did show pictures last year, the state that they're in, and being that we have a brand new playground there, it only makes sense to make sure that our basketball courts are up to standard. So moving on, we have replaced entrance doors at the community center. This was talked about I believe, before I got here, and I'm revisiting it. And I do think this is one of the items that I would really like to see approved, being that back in August, when we had a storm hit, the community center flooded and it came through the front doors. The way that the front of the community center is set up, there's a slope. And when we got the amount of rain that we did, the water came underneath the doors. In 2019, we laid brand new flooring and carpet and have a beautiful rug there. So I would highly suggest getting that taken care of. They're old. We've had issues with them, with the locking mechanism. Again, so I think that is something that is important to get. The next line item is the community center gymnasium doors. I separated these out because I do think one can be done without doing the other, although I would like to see everything done. The gymnasium doors, I would like to see access control panels and alarms placed on them. So we do have kids, we have grown adults that let people in the back, and we are trying to make sure that everyone enters the front. Our staff, has cameras out front and they do monitor it. And sometimes, people do slip in, and we need to know who's in our building. We need to make sure that everyone is checking in and replacing them along with having those access control alarms, only further helps that. We also, the side doors especially are old. We have trouble locking them. If they're opened, it's really hard to get them to close. So I know Dan can tell you that he's worked on them a few times.
Lauren, do we keep those locked?
We do in the gymnasium.
Okay,
we
right.
do. They're always locked. There have been a couple times where we've opened them to allow more airflow since we don't have the HVAC system for certain classes going on. But for the majority of the time, they're closed. They're never open during our open gym time. Okay. It's only been for classes.
Okay. So if someone is letting other people in, they're unlocking it. And
so,
Yeah, they have to be unlocked.
Karen, that's a good, so the doors that are on 5th Avenue, there's no lock. So from the inside, they can be pushed open. They're locked from the outside.
okay.
And that would have to stay that way, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it would. It would. We wouldn't be able to have to lock people inside that way. Yes, correct.
Okay. But the alarms would solve that
The
problem.
alarms would let us know that the doors are being opened.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And these have already been worked on, like in terms of when you were saying that they're difficult to close and trouble with the locks. So
Yep. Hello. I believe that prior to me coming in 2018, it was discussed about replacing them. So this is something that's an ongoing issue. This is not just within the last year or two. It's something that's been discussed before, and I thought it important to revisit it.
okay.
Any other questions on the
thank you.
doors?
I think you're okay, Lauren. Go ahead.
The next item would be the multipurpose room divider. I know this has been in, kind of on my wish list for the budget. I think that it would be a great addition to the multipurpose room, making it, allowing us to split it between programming or having a double rental. So that's something that I would still like to see in there. I think it would only be a highlighted addition.
Okay, Lauren, does it have to be electric? We have divider doors at our church that are pulled and they work quite well.
And do they just hang there?
They're on a track.
So it doesn't have to be, but I wouldn't want them just hanging on the side, Anita. I know they're on a track, but if they're hanging down, so we have programs in there that we wouldn't be able to have them hanging, which is why something, up high.
I don't understand what you mean by hanging. I mean,
It's like a
they
shower
fold
curtain.
This is-
Like a shower curtain, correct. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm sorry.
Steph just said like a shower curtain. That's what I'm imagining when you say you have a pool curtain.
Yeah, they have a bar that you pull on with handles, and they accordion fold, and then they have a strap that holds them closed, so they're,
There's probably a track in the ceiling, and that ceiling
yeah, there's a
is how
track in
many
the,
feet. Yeah, that ceiling in the multipurpose room is like how many feet high.
Right.
Yes.
yeah, ours
Yeah.
is 50. Ours is really high.
I did get quotes before
Okay,
for other options. I do think that this is the best option, but if it's something that you want to see or consider for another option, I can look into it more.
We just need to be mindful when you're
we've
talking
already
about.
researched it. We can go with this. I
Yeah,
was
and-
just putting that out there.
Go ahead, Steph.
No, it's okay. I'm good. Anita, I got it. We're good.
Okay.
And then my last line item here, refinishing the gym floor. Again, it's something that I've discussed with you all before, the state of our gym floor. It's been almost 30 years, I believe, since it has been done, and it's in need of being done. So every year we do have it coated, and where they sand it down a little bit, but it's getting to a point where that's not even really working anymore from what they're saying to me. And all the dirt and grit is just kind of sitting there. So I'd like to see that done as well.
Does that include the restriping?
It does. It does.
Good.
And possible permanent pickleball lines in that.
Good addition, Lauren.
Yeah, so we do put down pickleball lines, and Dan just actually did it for me again. We took it up for a rental, and we just put them back down, and we tried, but it's kind of tedious, and it does leave a slight mark, which comes off when we do refinish it, or reseal it. So
Okay.
Looks good.
Laura, it's Tina. I have a couple questions.
sure.
The basketball courts at Aubrey Collins Park, the $50,000 investment. Who is using those courts? Are we using those courts as part of our league process? Is it just the courts for the community? I guess I'm just trying to get a picture on that.
So it's something that I would consider hosting, having leagues there. It's still something that I'm trying to put together for our leagues, and having that extra court would definitely be great, to have another game going on there. And then, I think it's for both, Tina. Our community does use it. I do, get phone calls about the court and, drive by, and the community does use it.
I guess my question is, could we refinish it like we did with Sutcliffe as an option? Because Sutcliffe are the courts that get heavily used, and we're not redoing, we didn't put that on the list. So I'm just trying to understand, are there other options? I mean, is
So
it about
I'm gonna
making
to be honest, I do not want to do what we did to Sutcliffe.
and why? And why?
That I don't think it turned out the way that I would have liked to see Sutcliffe turn out.
How so?
Is it a safety issue, Sutcliffe?
The
Or is
ceiling,
it
yeah,
an
the
aesthetic?
ceiling of the courts just didn't. So at first it looked really good and nice, but if you take a walk down there now, it's starting to, the cracks are starting to come again.
Yes.
And how long has that been, Lauren, since we did that? 2 years?
No, a year.
A year? Okay.
And how
Okay.
much did that cost just to do that piece? Do you recall?
I think about 3,400.
Okay.
And then from the community center, locker rooms. So I know this one keeps kind of getting put on and off.
I'm sorry, I skipped that.
That's okay. Just from the perspective of use, and does it make sense to spend that kind of money, in what year? But who is using the locker rooms, the showers and all of that?
They're our main, they're our main bathroom. So they get used, heavily by our members and people who come in for our programs. The showers are used by some members after the gym or, working out, or I'm sorry, after a class or working out in our fitness center. I wouldn't say our showers are used all the time, but the shower fixtures it's pretty bad there. I feel like maybe people would use it more if they looked a little nicer.
Okay, so we're not doing it for a code or regulatory. This is aesthetics to try and kind of pretty up
Spruce it
the
up.
rest of the.
Yes.
Okay. That was all the questions I had. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Lauren?
Can I just chime in for one thing for the basketball courts at Aubrey Collins Park? I believe Lauren's absolutely right with this, is the infrastructure built around those courts and the way those courts are right now. Sutcliffe Park at its worst was better than the courts currently at Aubrey Collins Park. So trying to do anything with that would probably just cause more problems down the road, and we would probably spend more money just trying to fix anything that we previously had put on it without a complete infrastructure underneath it.
Okay. Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks.
And Lauren, I know that Jane asked you about the showers. What kind of condition are the sinks and things in the bathrooms, in the locker rooms?
It's in need, Colleen. It's the aesthetics of it. If we're trying to make it more appealing to people to become members, it's not something, that I would go in and say, I would want to use as a member here.
Okay.
At some point, could we get images just to better understand when we're talking about the aesthetics?
Sure. Sorry about that. Yes, I can take some pictures for you.
I think when we're talking about the community center, and we're going to talk about this in greater extent later on in the meeting in terms of long-term goals.
Right.
We've made concerted decisions as it relates to that building that we weren't pumping large amount of resources into it because we weren't sure of kind of where the long-term goals of the building were going to go. So what we've made decisions on is small pockets of money to make big impact decisions that would upgrade the aesthetics and allow our community to see it as a resource. It is highly used now. If you look at our revenue numbers forget COVID with rentals, but the program fees, even in the era of COVID, we're almost close to our goal in terms of programming revenue. So they are using the community center. We want to provide a safe, clean, pleasing area for kids, families, young adults, seniors to utilize. And so the dollars that you're seeing in front of you as it relates to the community center are focused just on that. Health, safety, aesthetically pleasing, and a place for those different age to go.
Sorry, Steph, do we know who caller number 5 is?
We don't, but we will mute them for the time being.
Thank you. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Lauren?
No, thank you, Lauren.
Okay, thanks, Lauren.
For Lauren's operational line item, if you turn to your packets on page 17, it's line item 451453. Lauren, if you want to discuss the rec software increase.
I'm sorry,
this
Steph, can you repeat that real quickly, please?
From rec desk.
Page 17 of your packet. It's line item 451453, recreation software. And I'll let Lauren explain the $100 increase.
Thank you.
So this is just the yearly increase from rec desk. I received a quote from them for 2022, and this is the number. It's always increased throughout the years, and this is right in line with that.
And Lauren, just for the general public that's on the call, the recreation software is the portal by which all community members can go on electronically, register for programs, pay for programs, register for special events, etc. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Lauren on that line item?
No.
Okay. Okay, well, Lauren,
Thank you,
that's all I
Lauren.
have for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
The next item on the agenda is administration, the Department of Administration. Angela Orr is the Director of Administrative Services. She is on vacation, so I'm going to be filling in for her. So I will hit her capital requests first. IT is a combination of my office, operations, and administration. As we discussed earlier this year, there were specific steps taken to increase our malware protection over the course of 2021. You'll see a budgeted line item there of $7,730. This is specific to the Wi-Fi and the security on the Wi-Fi. It's a replacement of the Sonic wall, and it's a recommendation by our IT provider based off of a 5 to 10 year plan. So that is the replacement of the Sonic wall. The next item is a replacement of staff computers, and that's based off of a depreciation schedule. There are specific staff that are due for new desktops. They would be 1 in the fire department, 2 in the public services. 2 in the fire department, 2 in the public services department, and 1 as a remaining for a replacement should there be a need in the middle of the year as a contingency. The other cost that is built into that are new council iPads. So the iPads that our current elected officials are utilizing have, in my opinion, reached the end of their life cycle. I appreciate everyone having the patience that they've had over the course of the last couple months. I feel like everyone has had issues operationally. It is time for new iPads. We are still evaluating iPads versus a Windows PC version, but the price is in the same ballpark. So you're looking at $22,500 for those upgrades in terms of computers and iPads. And then the last item from an administrative standpoint, and this was in your packet that was provided in your meeting materials. As you're all aware, records retention is one of the major requirements for administration. There is an entire records management manual that we are required to follow per state code. Our main storage is we have a large file room that's in our administrative suite. That is for current year and year prior. We then cycle records down to our main storage room, which is on the main floor. That houses large cabinets. And as if you all remember, we had fun when we moved to our new building and we had to move files from 3 or 4 different locations. I can say big thank you to Angela Orr and Tiffany Griffin and Chris Stetler, really for all of their work going through those large amount of files. We are almost completely off the floor, refiled, boxed, and into actual cabinets. So it was a huge undertaking. It's extremely impressive. However, you know, we have record retention requirements that we have to follow on an annual basis. And so we're only going to have additional files. So we are in a process now where we file, shred, store, and we just need additional capacity in order to hold those files, which is why you're seeing a request for additional storage cabinets for the records room. And that is at a cost of $23,104.70. And those are the capital requests from the administrative department.
Steph,
Are they going downstairs?
Anita or Tina?
Go ahead, Anita.
Are they going downstairs or are they going into the file room on your floor?
They're going downstairs.
Okay.
So Steph, these additional 8 cabinets.
Yes.
Did you size that for 5 years? Did you size that for how far did you size that out?
We are sized specifically to, we have one section of boxes that of files that we are required to keep per the records management forever. And that is the portion of cabinets. So I have space probably for 2 years remaining. We need this additional 8 cabinets in order to finalize the protection of the files that we are required to keep.
Okay, so this will get us to where you need to be. You have about 2 years, and then in 2 years we'll have to identify additional either process or something.
We'll need a slightly additional storage space. However, we will also be able to clean out. So most of our requirements are 7 to 10 years. So as we now have everything labeled and we know where everything is, we'll be able to destroy, shred those files in additional space to take what's upstairs and downstairs. The cycle will continue.
Great.
So the work that Tiffany and folks did was to put stuff in order so that we could get to the point where we can follow the records retention policies and be able to destroy rather than have to save everything because it's not organized.
That is
a
correct.
correct statement.
That is a correct statement. It also gave us the capability of being able to electronically file on our new server those documents that we are permitted to save electronically and not hard copy.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions for Stephanie?
And then I will hit the line items from the administrative side. So if you turn to the first line item would be on page 7. It is line item 403318. The BPT and mercantile tax collection fee. You'll see an increase of $3,000. That $3,000 is a percentage that's tied specifically to what we are forecasting as an increase on the revenue side. So understand that the tax collection fees move with revenue coming in. So as that number increases, your fees for services will increase as well. Any questions on that one?
No.
No.
The next line item is on page 8. It's line item 406460. it's professional development. You'll see a $2,000 increase. Last year, we specifically set a goal of decreasing the role of our finance consultant, so she stays on as an overarching audit and finance compliance personnel. But we have started redirecting some of those duties to internal staff from a professional development standpoint. You'll see the increase, that's for training purposes.
Okay.
Any questions on that line item? The next one is on the same page, page 8. It's 407,264. You'll see an increase of $3,762. That is specific to the increase of the malware that was put in place in an effort to protect the borough and our records from any cyber attacks. Any questions on that one?
And that's proactive, correct?
It's completely proactive and hopefully stays proactive, Tina.
Okay, thank you.
And that is all the line items from an administrative perspective, if there are any questions.
I don't believe there's any questions, Steph.
Okay. Then at this time, we will move into police. And again, Chief Metz is unfortunately on vacation. So in his place, Kelly Olkowski, the administrative assistant, will be presenting the capital item requests for the police department along with any line item increases. So Kelly, if you're ready, you can jump on.
Okay, I am ready. Good evening, everyone. Our capital expense budget is primarily focused on replacing vehicles in our police fleet and IT concerns. So we are requesting $111,838 to continue on the schedule of replacing our police fleet. We plan to purchase and upfit 2 new police vehicles. This cost includes setting up and configuring the computers, radios, and other communication devices in the new vehicles, installing safes and wrapping the vehicles with police markings. And then for our server, our current server is outdated and is no longer able to handle updates as necessary with the different software we run, as well as handle the uploading of data, especially our new body-worn camera system. We need a server that is capable of handling this and also one that is up to date and able to be protected from privacy data breaches. As such, we are requesting $12,000 to replace our current server. It was at the recommendation of our IT consultant. This new server will serve for files, data, and WatchGuard services. It will be a virtual-based server and will bundle the 5 servers we currently have into one. Next, we are looking for $8,000 for new Microsoft licensing, which is currently out of date, and a virtual licensing machine. These fees also include the transfer of our email to cloud-based email services and a 1-year subscription for that service. Apparently for our agency size, it is not cost-effective to store our email on the virtual server. We're requesting $3,000 for a new firewall because our firewall is currently expired. $10,000 for storage space for the body-worn camera footage. This will offer 10 to 15 terabytes of storage. $2,000 for a new backup drive for our server. This will back up our server on a separate system daily to retain our records in the event of a data breach. So that's it for the server. And then we're also requesting $4,800 for 4 new police computer workstations, which is something we've done, I think, every year to continue on the schedule of replacing the department's older computers. That is it for our capital budget. If anyone has any questions.
Kelly, I just have one question. I think you said this. Is storage for WatchGuard, is that body cameras?
Yes, so it's the body worn cameras, and it's also, we have an in-car system. So they'll be integrated once we get the body cam up and running, and it's just gonna take up a lot more space.
Okay. Okay.
Because there are like retention rates that we have to follow.
Okay, okay, thank you.
It's Tina. I have a question about the police vehicles.
Okay.
So we've replaced, we have a program for replacing police vehicles. The cost of the two vehicles this year over the cost prior years, is there a greater difference in pricing for vehicles? And do we have to be concerned that there won't be vehicles available because of what's going on in the industry right now?
There is a concern. I know even this year we just got the police vehicles last week because of microchips not being available and cars not being produced properly, or not properly, but in a timely fashion because of COVID. The price is about the same as it has been the past 2 years to replace them. It's just hopefully they'll have the inventory that we need.
Okay. And have we gotten last year's cars in at this point?
Yeah, they just came last week. I think
Okay.
Thursday. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
On the vehicle part of it, the police use Chevy. Chevy has a completely redesigned vehicle, and there was a built-in price increase of about 5%, but that's a CoStar's price. That's not a public price. So the increase wasn't substantial at all. The biggest part of vehicles for 2022 will not be price, it'll be availability.
Correct.
And Ray, when you say that was a CoStar's price, so these vehicles, we're not purchasing them for the same type of pricing as if you're buying a regular car?
No, I don't have the price for the Chevy in front of me, but let's say, for instance, the Chevy Tahoe would start off at about $54,000 for the general public. You would take about 25% off of that price for a CoStar.
I believe the ones that came in last week were about 42,000 each for a Tahoe.
Yeah, so it's substantially less than the general public would be able to purchase that vehicle. It's through the state procurement program, which allows municipalities like ours to purchase vehicles based on the quantity that the state is purchasing those same types of vehicles at.
So
And are they fully equipped when we get them? Or does that have to be added?
No, that's a separate, I mean, this is in with the total that I gave you, the 111,000, but they'll have to be wrapped. They install safes, all the communication devices, computers, radios, all that stuff. So that's in the total. But there's separate things that we have to do.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's a purchase price that Ray was talking about, and then there's the outfitted price that then is the total cost of the car.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Anyone else on council have any questions?
No.
Okay.
Move into your line items for operational for council. That starts on page 10 of your packets under expenditures.
Okay, so for the first line item, it's 410, 186. It's the uniform maintenance budget. This increased by $700. This line item was not discussed with me prior to Chief Metz's departure for vacation. It will be addressed and rectified if necessary upon his return. So we'll have to just kind of gloss over that one for tonight.
Yeah, so
Kelly, sorry.
To add to that, so this is an actual CBA item. So I'm thinking that this was a typo when Chief Metz turned it in. I just can't clarify that with him at this point. But we will clarify it prior to any adoption or advertisement of the budget. Okay, sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
No. So our next line item is 410-303. It's information services. We're requesting a $600 increase in this. We're requesting a budget increase for this line item due to monthly increases in the costs passed down from the company. We also found in the past that this service was placed on the wrong budget line and therefore not properly accounted for in our yearly costs. So we're passing it along to that. Does anyone have any questions? Sure.
What exactly is information services?
Okay, so it's a company called Thompson Routers. The police department uses the information service tools to bring together like key content. We locate hard to find information and quickly identify potential concerns associated with people and businesses to determine if further analysis is needed. So this allows our department to close gaps of information to improve officer safety and community well-being. Does that make sense? So
No,
it's a
but
pro.
that's okay.
Okay. Do you want me to explain it further?
No,
Okay.
we can find that out later. Go ahead.
Okay. So our next line item is the copier and lease supplies. It's 410,384. We're requesting a $1,500 increase in this line item. Last year we entered a flat rate contract for our copier, but it did not include color, which is billed additionally every month. So we were able to secure an addendum to this flat rate contract for the lease of our copier, which includes the machine itself, as well as all usage for color, usage fees, repairs, ink for all of our printers and copiers in the police department. And I would like to point out, while this shows as an increase of $1,500 from this past year's budget, it's still a $2,800 reduction from the years prior to 2021. It was just, there was an issue with the contract last year, not including the color. So it's kind of an updated contract from that.
Is that a flat rate 1,500 increase, or the more we use color, the more we would
No,
spend?
color will be included, and this is a 4-year contract, so it'll be this will not change for the next 4 years at least.
Okay.
And the amount every month is exactly the same.
Okay.
So next would be 410,452. It's computer service and repair. We're requesting a $5,000 increase in this line item. It's based mostly on increased priority for malware and domain protection from ransomware, etc. So our costs for IT service and labor has increased. At this point in the year, 80% of our budget is already spent because of the extra malware protection we've had to offer. So we just need an increased amount for the cost of our IT labor.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Kelly, do you want to hit your last line item?
Yep, yeah, it's 410,453. It's computer software contracts. We're requesting a $2,600 increase in this line item. This line item is comprised of our reoccurring software contracts. The request for increase in this line item is due to yearly cost increases on our existing contracts, as well as the addition of 2 investigative software programs that we use. One is CellHawk, and it's a cell phone mapping, cell tower mapping program, and the other is Cellbright. It's a forensics download for cell phones. So it's just these costs that are going to be reoccurring that we need to cover.
Okay. Any questions for Kelly?
No.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kelly. Thanks for filling in for Chief Metz.
No problem. Good night.
Good night.
Next up is Public Services, Emergency Services, and Fire Services. Our Executive Director of Operations, Ray Sokolowski.
Good
Start
evening.
with, good evening. I'll start with, there's a presentation and pictures of the items that we're requesting. The first item that we're requesting is this mastic patch machine. So, as everyone knows, in the Borough of Conshohocken, we have some issues with our roads. We've had these issues have been existing for a good period of time. Some of the roadways are going to be, we're looking to have replaced in the future, but even those require daily maintenance. There hasn't been a substantial effort in the past to look at the daily maintenance of our roadways once they're even newly installed. This piece of equipment was something that was looked at a state trade show. Many of the municipalities around us do have this type of equipment. It basically is a machine that patches and puts a milled type of blacktop in patch holes. Is that somebody? I get bad feedback. Can you turn that?
I don't.
Okay.
Oh.
The price of this machine is about $55,000, and we're looking at this in several ways. We're looking at it in a return on investment based on what's going to be for us, and mostly anecdotal. It's not going to be. I can't give you an exact number or how long it's going to take, or how much money we're going to be able to save hourly by using a machine like this and having this at our having this here without having to go and attempt to rent this or borrow it from another municipality. But in general, if we look at an area like Fifth and Fayette that would be patched, 10 by 10 patch, for our current public services crew to do that with the equipment that we currently have, it takes about 3 to 4 days to complete. We would be going from 3 to 4 days of completion for something like that to hours in the same day. So over a period of time, I would attempt to do the math for you, but I think you can understand that it would be over a period of time a substantial savings. It also would add to the quality of our roadways, which do need some care. And even if we do get into a program where we do replace a good portion of our roadways, we still need to maintain them. Roadways do have issues. Even newly formed or newly created roadways have issues, and this is a piece of machinery that would definitely come into play. Part of what I do with any equipment that I ask for the Public Works Department, Public Services Department, is I meet with the Public Services Department, and as a whole, we discuss what the priorities are. And this was one of the priorities. This was something that they felt would definitely help them and enhance what they do, and for the long term become cost effective.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between what you do now and this machine in as time? Like how long it will?
So in general, some of the things that this machine does, we can't do, period. We would have to have someone else do. But if you look at the picture on the left portion of this is a piece of roadway that has to be repaired. It has to be cut out. So Public Works would cut out a section of this, square this, and the bottom part of that picture, you see what a repair would look like. That's what it would look like. In order for us to do this without a machine like this, they would have to drive to the quarry in White Marsh Township, which is where they get their blacktop from, bring that blacktop in. That requires at least one driver and a half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on the line at the blacktop,
Right.
the black facility. This in total would be pulling up, someone making the cutout, and them going over it with the machine, and that would be it, and walk away. It uses a different type of blacktop. It's a blacktop actually. It's a little softer at first, and it allows it to level itself out inside the cracks, rather than have to tamp it down or use one of those vibrating machines that you see to go over the top of it to actually get it to form correctly. So it's a cost-saving item. It's long-term. It's a $55,000 piece of equipment, so it's not like you're going to get a return on an investment in the first year or two. but over, let's say, a 5-year span, depending on how our roadways are, you would definitely get a return on your investment. And there's already numerous roads in the borough, and I'm sure you all know where they are, that this would immediately come into play. The day after we had it, we're trained on it, and we're able to use it, it would come into play. Any
Ray,
questions on that?
I just have one. And you probably do know the answer, what type of warranty comes with that piece of equipment?
Every piece of equipment we get. Now, this is again through the state procurement program. It's a 1-year warranty. It's not as complicated a piece of machinery as you may think because of the picture. It is basically a very large motor with a heating element that allows this material to be heated up and then dispersed out the back. So there are not a lot of moving parts to it. Some of the older equipment, that's why they went to this type of format with this equipment, became overly complicated. This has a small computer on it to make sure that the times, the heat, everything is right for it to be put on the roadway. It also, I think this one, it either comes with the laser and has an attachment that actually shoots a laser onto the asphalt to make sure that the temperature is correct to install it and the temperature is correct to allow vehicles to go over the top of it.
Okay.
I hate to say this, but it's pretty much dummy proof.
That's okay. That's a good addition to it. So Ray, the material that goes on this street using to repair, how does that hold up to heat? Like, it's not like some of the things you see in some of the areas that actually like melts in the heat so that when you step on it, it's all over you?
No, it doesn't. It's we actually put this. We took this. This was out. We demoed this on our streets. So we actually used this in some locations in Conshohocken. We used it at off the top of my head, I know 7th and Jones. We used it at. There's a lot of issues in the area around 7th and Jones. So we used it there. It was put down. And within about 20 minutes on a day that was about 85, 90 degrees, within 20 minutes, vehicles could go over the top of it.
Okay. Thanks.
So it's not that rubbery type of stick to your heel kind of material.
Yes, that was my question.
Anything else on that?
I don't believe so, Ray.
Okay. I'll move on to the next thing.
And I guess, Ray,
so
that would
again,
just be kept up at 7th Ave.
I'm sorry?
I guess that would just be kept up at 7th Ave.
It would either be kept at 7th Avenue or it would be kept at the 9th Avenue, 9th and, we call it the 9th and Wood garage. It's the hidden garage that nobody knows about, the one that we'll talk about the garage doors and a little bit later in the same presentation. But it's that's where we generally keep something like that.
Okay, thanks.
In there? It'll fit there?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We a few years back purchased 2 years now. We purchased this JCB backhoe. It was the first backhoe the borough had. It allows us to use a lot of different attachments. Some of the attachments were purchased immediately with this machine, there were some, like a jackhammer was purchased. Some small items were purchased at the time. We didn't know what the capabilities of this thing really were until recently. Some of the new equipment that's come out for this JCB is this, one of the things that really caught our attention, or the guys at Public Services attention, was this, they call it a dipper stick. It's like a thumb. It's able to grab wood. It's able to pull at large pieces of material and bring it towards you. So it has two different uses for us. One of them is normally is the normal maintenance of things like the areas around Sutcliffe Park, for instance, where they would have to go in and pull materials like the 4-inch thick vines that have developed around the park and places like that. But it also has an emergency response part where if a tree falls in the roadway, it could be cut into small pieces and lifted out by this. It's difficult to do that with a backhoe. And generally what happens is, if this happens during the night, they push it out of the way onto the side of the road. And then we use a company to come in and to remove it. This would allow them to pick up these type of materials, as you see in the picture, and be able to put them on vehicles that we already have in our fleet and carry them away. We also, at that point, would be able to take these to the 7th Avenue garage, cut them into pieces, and use them for mulch at the 7th Avenue garage. Any questions on that?
So Ray, in the last 2 years, can you think how often this would have been beneficial?
Well, in this year, let's say this year, I don't even have to go out 2 years. In this year, it probably would have been used at every single storm that we've had. I can't think of one, and this is the reason this came up, is we did try to get this attachment as a rental to see if we could rent it. But this particular attachment on our unit requires a welded piece of a welded hydraulic bracket to be put on. So that's part of the install of this. So we wouldn't be able to have rented it anywhere. We would have had to rent the entire machine. So we would have had to rent a backhoe with this attachment on it, which isn't cost effective at that point. You're talking about $2,500 to $3,000 a week for that. If you can get it during the storm, you usually can. Everybody's out there renting these things right away. So this year, the flood, we would have used it. The storm before that, which we had a lot of down trees, and we had a lot of material that were moving around in our area, we would have used it. And every single storm that I could think of, we've had numerous trees fall at Sutcliffe Park that had to be cut into small pieces, smaller pieces, and then we had to bring in the company that we use, Dan Moore, to get it out, because we just don't have anything to lift it onto a vehicle.
And how much is this attachment?
The entire attachment is $10,000 with the hydraulic, with the install of the hydraulic bracket.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
I don't believe so, Ray.
Okay. The Ventrec machine is something that we purchased. The machine itself is something that we purchased a year ago that we've used for everything now. So that, again, most of the stuff that is bought in public services is bought with multiple uses, for multiple uses. This is a perfect example of that. This has about 11 or 12 attachments that can be put on it to do everything from snow removal, grass cutting, tree cutting, everything. It's worked out great for us. It worked out in the snow this year. It's better than expected. And it replaced a 25-year-old John Deere tractor that could hardly make it up a hill in town. So it completely changed how things were done here. The two attachments that they're requesting are a spreader for this particular machine. We've instituted a lot of different programs to get the grass and the grass in our parks and the fields to be in a better condition. So that requires the spreading of a lot of different, not necessarily chemicals, but a lot of different type of seed and a lot of different type of material that will allow the grass to grow. So they spread this now. They use the old John Deere to spread a lot of the materials. That's not really working out very well for them. So this has a spreader on it. This will also spread salt in the wintertime for the entire, for where it's being used in the borough, which is the A field, admin building, community center, library, Aubrey Collins Park, Sutcliffe Park. And then the other attachment is, again, self-explanatory. That's a leaf blower. We would have, for both of these items, we would have a return on investment. For the amount of time it takes two guys to walk around the park with a manual salt spreader and to do the admin building with a salt spreader, it would take a quarter of the time to do it with this. And it's a one-man operation. You wouldn't need 2 to 3 people to do this. Same with the leaf blower. The leaf blower, the biggest culprit right now is Marywood Park. Marywood Park, that takes 2 to 3 times a week during the leaf season to try to get these to the point where it could go out to the curb where the new leaf truck can scoop it up and turn it into mulch. They're doing this with these hand blowers to try to get this to the curb, and it takes, that's a good day for 2 guys to get these things done. This would be a one-man operation. They would go up, get it done, take it to the curb, and then a leaf truck would come by. Just makes everything more efficient. And our return on investment for this would be about 2 years. Any questions on that?
Ray, how many trucks do we have or vehicles that can spread salt?
On the roadway or on a sidewalk?
On a roadway, because that's what this would function as, right?
Yeah, this would be on sidewalks. We wouldn't use this to spread salt on the roadway. So this would do the sidewalks of the community center. So let's say the community center is the entire block. How they spread the salt at the community center now is they put it in hand spreaders and they walk the entire block. They do that with the A field. They do that with any location that they have. This machine would allow them to do that. Instead of doing it manually, it would allow them to do it with this machine.
This looks like a big piece of, like a regular sized truck. It's not?
No, if you look at the bottom right-hand picture, there's a guy sitting on it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't okay. All right, perfect. Great. Okay. What from the top left?
That's a really big guy. That's okay.
All right. Good
it's
frame.
The size of a small. I would say it's the size of a medium grass cutting riding grass cutting machine.
Got it. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Anything else on that one? Okay. So this is a jackhammer attachment for the same backhoe. I'm sorry?
Well, you had one.
We have a jackhammer that attaches to the side of the JCB that is the same thing as a jackhammer that's used off of a generator that someone has to stand over top of it and use it. This is one that attaches to the front end of it. And when we get into concrete that's more than 6 inches thick, which in this borough is quite often the case, this would be attached to the front of the backhoe and go through the concrete. Now we have used this attachment on a backhoe numerous times. It's used for streets to take up blacktop. It's used for curbs. It's used for sidewalks. It's used for aprons, for driveway aprons. Driveway aprons in the borough of Conshohocken have to be at least 6 inches thick. Our aprons at the fire companies are 12 to 16 inches thick. Our apron at the borough garage is about 14 inches thick and takes over 3 weeks to cure before anything can drive over top of it. So that wouldn't be practical to try to get rid of or demo with a hand jackhammer. You'd have to use something like this. With the repairs that we've had to make recently in roadways, Stoddard Avenue is one of them, where this was used in order to get down to where we thought we had a problem in the storm sewer there. It is completely a game changer when we use these. But again, when we rent this, we rent it at about $3,000 a week, and with the front end attachment, and because it requires a specific jackhammer, we can't use it for our JCB. With the thumb attachment, the hydraulic the hydraulic bracket that gets attached to the thumb attachment, that allows this jackhammer to be used on that JCB. So it's one attachment that has to be put on for those two pieces. And that pretty much is everything that we would need for that piece of machinery. If we needed to do anything, where did that come? If we needed to do anything larger, we would probably hire somebody from the outside to do it. We wouldn't take that on ourselves. Any questions with that?
So Ray, it's Tina. A lot of what you're showing us is equipment that now can be done with machinery versus manual. When we looked at Divot and the savings through Divot, is this all part of that program, or will this help us continue to keep down our insurance and our workman's comp dollars?
Well, I think Stephanie could speak to this too, but I think the fact that we've kept our workman's comp levels to where we have over this period of time is, I think, is a lesson to us that, or not a lesson, but allows us to actually claim the fact that what we've done in the last several years in order to remove some of the manual requirements from the work that Public Services has been doing and move that to the machinery function has paid off. So I don't know exactly what our savings were, but I know that it started with the trash cans and changing over from manual trash cans to the use of the hydraulic trash cans, the tip cans, and then moved to things like tailgate lifts and things that these guys were doing manually, lifting up very heavy objects manually. And it's not just the lifting it up one time, but repetitive actions, which is something that Divot was specific on talking about when they came to us and talked about our claims, was the repetitive actions, lifting these heavy weights that were causing injuries to the employees. We've eliminated a lot of that. Our injuries are, although there's still some there, but I would say that they're relatively minor as opposed to what they were.
Tina, just to back off of what Ray just said, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings between our previous insurance carrier and council's decision to buy into the trusts for workers' comp and meeting their requests to move towards automation and machine-led functions and operations. I can tell you that even through a pandemic where we had our frontline responders continuing to work 24/7, you are looking at a renewal. There's higher numbers that are in the draft budget that are in front of you because I didn't have the preliminary numbers prior to sending you your meeting materials, but I did receive preliminary budget estimates from Divot on Monday, and you're still looking at a potential $20,000 savings from 2021 moving into 2022, and that's based off of, again, decisions like this in terms of machinery the council has made over the course of the last 3 years. So yes, there is a direct financial impact, as well as a safety and health and wellness impact to our employees and our crew.
Right, and I guess I bring it up because, you know, when you look at these are nice to haves, but nice to haves also have purpose from the perspective of our workforce safety and savings. So I think that we're heading in the right direction, and I appreciate that your staff are the ones that are out there also identifying the tools to make your jobs easier.
I think we lost you, Tina.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yeah.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate that you use your frontline staff to help identify the tools to make their work easier and more efficient. So kudos for allowing our staff who are out there in the field to be able to contribute to their own success.
Absolutely. Ditto that.
Any other questions with that one?
No, thanks,
Okay.
Ray.
Okay. Okay. This is a topic for discussion and discussion only at this point. But I think the council needs to know this for future councils and future budget discussions. 610 East Elm Street is the current Borough garage. We've been able to work with that Borough garage because we've also had or have recently been able to utilize the 7th Avenue garage a lot more. And initially it was the 7th Avenue garage was just basically thought of as a piece of property that we had that, you know, we could dump things in. And that's not what it is anymore. It is an integral part of our operations for the entire borough, for everything that we do in the borough. That being said, 610 East Elm Street is still what the main, what we run the main operations for public services out of the borough of Conshohocken. It's a building that it was built in the 40s, that did go through a substantial fire in the 50s. Some of the actual wood from that fire is still in the roof of that building, and it's charred, but it was able to be satisfactorily at that point in the 50s reutilized as a functioning garage, and we at some point the borough at some point purchased it and used it as its public works garage. So the one big issue there, these guys have really made, and this is a benefit to the public works public services department. Those guys have really been able to turn that into a good place to work out of. They've been with the help of the 7th Avenue garage. It's not an elbow to elbow operation. All the vehicles aren't parked there together. Right now it is utilized to the best it possibly can. It has a training room that we just flooded out, but those guys will rebuild it. It has offices. It has everything. But one of the big problems is there is the roof. And the reason I didn't put it into the budget this year is because the substantial cost of wood and the substantial cost of trying to replace anything that size I don't think it's cost effective for us to look at that this year, because it may be 20, 30, 40% more this year than it potentially could be next year or the year after, simply because of the cost of things like wood and everything else that's needed to make that work. But it does not have a lifespan. So what I'm saying is that there is always the potential that I might be back in front of Stephanie, and Stephanie might be back in front of you all to ask to have this roof done at some point, based on the fact that we have 60-mile-an-hour straight line winds and it gets torn off. There's not a safety issue. We've had it looked at, but it's constantly leaking, and we've had estimates, pre-COVID estimates for replacement of that in the $40,000 range. I haven't even bothered to try to get one right now, but my guess is we would be about $65,000 to $70,000 for that roof if we tried to get it done today. So it's just something that I think once we have an opportunity and the price is right, and unless there's some other plan on either moving the Public Works Department to another location or selling that building, that we replace that entire roof. And by entire roof, I mean the entire roof. Wood, it's a oval-shaped flat roof with tar. So it's not a flat roof and it's not a pitched roof. It's actually oval-shaped. So nothing to do with this job is cheap. It's going to be expensive, and even made more expensive by current conditions. So I thought it would be at least beneficial to bring it up in case this comes up somewhere down the line in the next several years.
Yeah.
Okay?
After we got done talking and you took us on the tour and you told us that the building had flooded in the last storm, I've been thinking a lot about it, and maybe we should start looking into how much it would cost and what we would need to move you all to Upper 7th.
Well, that would be a conversation again for that is substantial investment, and that would be a conversation for that would be a substantial conversation for another time. 7th Avenue is a good location. We do own the piece of property, and it's a large enough piece of property that it would work, and we could make it aesthetically appealing to the neighborhood too if we needed to. But again, everything comes into play, including what the sale of 610 East Elm Street will bring. But
and then we'll also get rid of the 9th Avenue shed.
Yes, the 9th Avenue garage at that point would go. Yeah. Okay?
Okay.
Any questions on that? Okay. Speaking of the 9th Avenue garage, the 9th Avenue garage has wooden doors that are being held up by 2x4s. If we're going to utilize that as active space, they can no longer do that. So this is the cost to replace the garage doors on that. The picture is not actually of the 9th Avenue garage. It's of a similar garage door that we would install there. It is big enough. It's the 9th Avenue garage, again, it's for a lot of people that have lived here all their lives don't even know it's there. It is a 2-bay garage that sits at the top of the hill between Sutcliffe Park and Maple Street on 9th Avenue. The only access to that is halfway down the halfway down the 100 block of West 9th Avenue. There's an alleyway as you go towards the park on your left. That's the way it's accessed. but it is utilized because of the lack of space and the lack of enclosed space that's needed to run a municipality this size. So it is utilized, but it can't be utilized on a daily basis because it takes 3 guys to go over there and hold the door open in order to get things in and out of safely. So if we add the garage doors, then at least one guy could go over and get whatever they need and leave. So it's both a safety issue and it does add the value to that. We did purchase the property next to it. I think we got it for what, like $10,000 or $11,000 several years back. So we own the garage and we purchased the property next to it, which was a similar sized property to what the garage is sitting on back there. So we do own a good piece of land back there, and we could utilize it a little bit better if it was amicable to be utilized by public service. Any questions on that? Easy enough. Okay. Fire services. The only thing that we have in fire services, we've recently hired some part-timers. NFPA, National Fire Institute, requires that equipment be replaced every 10 years or so. Most of our part-timers are using equipment that has been hand-me-downs from other volunteers. We need to, a lot of that equipment has reached its 10-year cycle. And we do have some, we have 2 female firefighters that we've hired, and most of the equipment that we purchased for them will have to be brand new. There's just not, they're smaller in stature, so none of the stuff will fit them. So those costs are to purchase new fire helmets, pants, boots, things like that for those part-timers. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay.
What about the grant we got? Won't that go towards them buying equipment?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The grant that we got.
The grant that the firefighters got is specific to the fire department. These are actually borough employees.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, we can't use the grant money for paid borough employees. Grant money is for volunteers.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions on?
Ray, I'm just going to add one item, and we'll discuss it more when we bring up the entirety of the capital worksheet as we work through decision making. What you'll see under emergency management, while there's not a specific line item, Ray and I have discussed adding in equipment or vehicle contingency for emergency management specifically. We're seeing increased flooding, larger snowstorms, hurricanes, etc. Like this past storm Ida and the flooding. Again, we did the supplemental appropriation for the high water rescue vehicle. We don't know if one of those needs will come up again, especially as we continue to evaluate the population shift as it expands along the river. So on the worksheet, we are proposing an equipment or vehicle contingency that sits in capital for an unknown but needed resource, where we've estimated or requested or recommended a $50,000 placeholder. Ray, I don't know if you want to add anything else on that before we move on.
The difficulty with these things, and we learned this from trying to purchase a high water vehicle, is when we have a situation like what happened over the last couple of weeks, everybody runs out to buy the equipment. And depending on when your budget is, whether it's January to January, June to June, or whether you have a contingency in your budget that allows you to just go and purchase equipment, you run into situations where you can't get anything. So I can give you for instance, we have 2 rescue boats. If we were to lose one of those boats, and it was a $15,000 or $20,000 contingency, or $15,000 or $20,000 boat. We have no contingency other than going in front of council and trying to get that as an emergency fund, and we would have to stand in line to try to get one of those boats. Fire trucks, fire equipment is another thing. And we know that in this last storm, because of all the flooding, we know of at least 30 fire trucks that are put out of service throughout Montgomery County. Some of them are going to be put out for a week. Some of them are going to be put out for several months. We would like to have a contingency to be able to address any of those issues. And those are just some of the major things. There are some minor issues that always come up, and you're always concerned about how those are going to get funded. If you have funds that are there and appropriated, then it makes the process easier.
We would still be declaring an emergency, and which then gives us the authority to do so. It would already be earmarked, and council would know that there's a sum of money that's allocated specific for that reason. Now, if we don't need it, clearly we won't use it, but it is definitely easier, more transparent to have the line item there and the funds allocated for that purpose, rather than trying to do it retroactively like we did this year. Again, you'll see it on the whole Excel sheet after we're done the presentations, but wanted to add that in there. Any questions for Ray on capital?
No.
We'll move to line items.
Okay, I'll just move through the line items very quickly. I have quite a few line items, and generally the line items that are involving operations do fluctuate. These are the ones that we have a 2% increase or more, and that's basically why we're talking about it. So operating and maintenance of the buildings, and that's the admin building, especially the admin building, but operating and maintenance of.
I'm just going to give them a place. So you're on page 9 of your packet, and we're starting with line item 409220, and we'll just work our way through.
Okay, I'll read out the line item number on the rest of them. So 409222, operating and maintenance, and basically that is, believe it or not, this building is 5 years old. And the national standard is once you do hit 5 years old, you do need to look at operational maintenance of a building. All of our warranties except for the roofs have expired. This building, the air conditioning and heating unit on the roof, one of the compressors on the roof, which we have 8 compressors, but just one of those compressors costs $25,000 to replace. We know why. We know what that number is because 5 days before the warranty expired, one of those compressors blew up, and we were able to get a new one under warranty. It was $24,400. But potentially we have 8 that are all the same age, and we could have an issue with any of them at any time. The other thing with this building is it's 24-hour operation out of the police department. So anytime you have a 24-hour operation, you have to look at things maintenance-wise, like paint, doors take a beating, things like that. And we're at the age now where we need to update some of those things. And it's basically right now, instead of doing a complete renovation of, let's say, the police department, I shouldn't say complete renovation, but renovation in the police department will be completely painting every room, looking at all the doors. We do it on a case-by-case basis. So that's why we're looking to increase that. The main thing with these buildings is that the the heating, air conditioning, emergency generator, electrical systems, all these things are very, very expensive to run. And, the borough has never owned a building this size. We didn't have anything to go back and look at to what and how much it would cost to run these things. We have a good idea on what it is now, but only recently Tower Health moved in and the building was for a period of time 100% occupied, so we got good numbers on that and an idea on what things would cost. But we do think that the numbers that we are asking for are in line with a building this size, especially with a 24-hour operation. Any questions on that? If not, I'll move to 409-226.
Just a quick question. When we start looking at maintenance costs and increases over the next several years, how does that play into CAM and what we are looking at with charging CAM for the lease space?
I heard part of that.
Sorry. With knowing that our fees and our operating expenses are going to go up over time, how do we factor in CAM for the lease spaces, and do we use some of that increase and apply it to the CAM charges within the building?
Well, our CAM charges were all decided at the beginning at lease signing, and so I think YMCA is a 10-year lease, and they have 5 years left on their lease. So but we don't have a CAM charge with the YMCA. We have a straight lease with them. So the only CAM charge we have is with Tower Health, and Tower Health's CAM charges. Are we doing a percentage on that stuff? I don't have it in front of me.
So we have Unit 1, which is the urgent care suite, and Unit 2, which is the Tower Health offices. The CAM charges are based off of building square footage, so the operating expenses are approximately 11.26% of their share, and then their property tax is 25.78% of their share. So, Tina, to answer your question, yes, we'll do it as our operating expenses increase. There'll be a slight increase coming into the borough because it's based off of percentage. But those are the percentages that are tied to what we call our expense tracker for CAM reimbursements for Tower Health specifically.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we have a plan.
Yes, there's a plan. So there's a direct correlation between if there's an increase in operating expenses as it pertains to this building that are permissible and defined as CAM expenses in the lease for Tower Health, then yes, 11.26% of that comes back to the borough.
But with the understanding that more than 50% of the building is occupied by the borough.
Correct.
So the police department, the admin building, and then obviously the YMCA. So it is not a one-to-one situation like it is in a lot of other business type CAM charges, where each occupant has a certain percentage that they are going to be paying towards their CAM.
Right, but from a strategy perspective, as we get more sophisticated and time goes by, we'll be able to make informed decisions that cover these kinds of things. This was the first time we went into this type of engagement, and we came up with the best solution at the time. But I think as years pass, we have to think of these things.
Yeah, Tina, I'll agree with you. I think that, as we're looking at long-term goals, one of the items that we are going to have to discuss is the public-private relationship that currently exists between Keystone and the borough as it relates to the borough administrative office. We might be coming to you from an administrative perspective and saying the time is right to approach Keystone and and have a discussion on the future of that relationship, especially since now our organizational structure is sound and efficient.
Right.
Along with that comes the question of, as we're looking at tenants and renewals of leases and et cetera, is whether or not we are comfortable with the CAM billings as they're currently stated in those lease documents. So yes, I completely agree with you. When you're looking at a municipality taking on an endeavor in terms of owning a building and operating a building and everything that comes along with that, right now we are positioned differently and strategically to handle that to a greater extent than we were 6 years ago, 7 years ago when those documents were drafted.
Right.
Thank you.
We have learned a lot of lessons about public-private partnerships.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, and we do have to remember that a lot of those things were set in place before actually any of us were here.
No, I was.
Yes, you were here, but adjusting them now as we go along, which is why the healthcare offices are leased differently because of our input to Keystone on that, and especially administrations.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
moving forward.
All right, I'll move to the 401-226, which is simple. It's cleaning supplies, contract and vendor costs increased. We had this little issue with COVID, so cleaning supplies are going to be a big thing, even going into next year. They're an unknown. Most of the cleaning companies that we're dealing with are dealing with two things: lack of help, which is the biggest thing, and then lack of supplies, which is the second biggest thing. Things like hand sanitizer and things like that are now still coming into play with being difficult to find, especially if you have a specific type of item that you need, like the hand sanitizers at the parks and things like that. They've been on back order for weeks now. Whenever there's a back order on something, it's first come, first serve, and we see increase in pricing all the time on those items. So until that stabilizes, we think we need to go and at least have some of that money accounted for in our budget. Any questions on that?
No.
409? Nope. Okay. 409, 450, which is warranties, service agreements. So our service agreements are for mainly for our mechanical structures. So things like the heating and air conditioning. Those warranties are maintenance warranties. They are not warranties to replace an item. So it's not like we purchased a warranty to replace a $25,000 compressor. We purchased a warranty to repair or to maintain these compressors. These are all union contracts. Union contracts tend to go up about 3% a year based on their CBA. So we add an increase on all of that, knowing that that's going to happen. And we also took on a new contract, right, which was a new contract. I don't know what it. We did take on a new contract, a new service contract, which I don't have in front of me. But that's the main portion of the service and warranty contract. They're very expensive, even just to replace things here, like filters. Every time the filters get replaced, it's in the $3,000–4,000 range. These contracts are mainly for the service itself and not for any of the materials.
So Ray, why such a big jump, 148%? Like why is it going from 25 to 62?
Mainly because a lot of the things that we're going to be using now in with these service contracts that are going to require materials. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this, but let's talk about the filtration system in the borough. We have something called VAVs, which are individual units that heat this building. Each of these VAVs have a filter. We used to use a filter that costs $200 because of the fact that we have a facility now that it's a healthcare facility, and we have the situation with COVID, we've increased those filters by four times. Those filters are almost $800, and they have to be changed. Most of them have to be changed twice a year, for every season. So some of those are the costs, and parts are hugely expensive now. So even if the warranty includes the maintenance part of it and includes the replacement part of it, it does not include the part itself. So we could have 100-200% increase on some of these parts. So a lot of this increase is based on a contingency, may not be used. Either operating and maintenance, the first line item, a lot of these items might not be used. But it would not be in my best interest to at least not increase these at this point, knowing what the current status is of the current difficulties it is to get some of this equipment.
So there aren't any additional service warranties. It's just the increase, the cost of them. That's really
yes.
Okay.
So it's the cost. The 3 to 4% increase that we're predicting the CBA, because again, these are union contractors. So union contractors basically go between 3.25% and 4%. So that's where we're lying just on the service contract alone. But the equipment and the difficulty in getting the equipment and the upgrades needed to enhance some of the safety issues here, like the air quality issues. That's the main crux of the increase.
Okay, thank you.
Did you look at multi-year warranties in this, or are these year-to-year warranties?
Some of them do offer multi-year warranties. Some of them benefit us, and some of them don't benefit us. It just depends. Again, it depends on what we haven't done. Is we haven't looked outside of the contractors that installed the equipment. Again, going back to when the building was built, a lot of the equipment that was put in here, knowingly or unknowingly by the people that were in charge at that point, the equipment and the systems that run the equipment were proprietary. So we have to use in some sense, we have to use the same people who installed it. We can't use a web-based building BAS system, an air conditioning and heating system that's web-based. We have to use Train system because Train made it proprietary. So if we try to change that now, the price that I got to change it to a web-based system is $25,000 or $30,000. Later on down the road, it will be beneficial for us to change it, but at this point, within 5 years, within 5 years of it being installed, it is not beneficial for us to install. So a lot of these things, because they're proprietary, we can't look at things like multi-year contracts with anybody else except Train. So if instead of locking into a 5-year contract with Train, we lock into a 1 or 2 year contract with Train, and all these contracts have 2 to 4% increase built in the contract. But anything after 2 years, I don't want to look at, because we may end up going to a web-based system or another system that is non-proprietary, and in the long run saves us money.
And I would assume, similarly to other types of services, that if we did scrimp and save and find someone that might be able to work on it, once we put someone else's hands on things, it null and voids the warranties that we currently have.
Yes, Train made that very clear. when we signed on to their contract. We did for 1 year try another company, and it took a lot of negotiation when we went back to train because it was clearly not cost effective at the end of the year to use the other company. Changing a bad thing, there's just too much proprietary. We have 46 VAVs in this building that control air conditioning and or heating in this building. Every one of those has its own computer monitor. Every single one of those needs to be upgraded 6 months every year. That is proprietary. So no matter who we had come in to do the work, we had to go back to train to have those VAVs all upgraded. And when they did that, it cost us triple what it did if we had their service contract. So it was clearly not beneficial to us to go with anybody else at this point.
Okay, thanks, Ray.
Okay, nothing else on that. The work order and inventory software, basically that's a price increase for an upgrade. That system will be able to track inventory now and do some street mapping for us. So the $2,000 increase is based on the fact that we upgraded the system to make it more manageable for us and utilize some of the things that we weren't utilizing from that company in the past. Anything on that? Okay, the 411270 on the fire department side.
So you're moving to page 12 of your
I'm
packet.
sorry.
Page 12 of your packet.
Okay, 411270, computer software for the fire department. That's a firehouse. It's called Firehouse Software. That is a tracking system for inspections and incidents. So it was just an upgrade from the old system that they had. The old system that they had clearly didn't work for us anymore. They do they inspect every commercial property in the borough of Conshohocken every year now. So the old tracking system didn't work, so they upgraded to this. In fact, the company that they were using basically sold out to this company, Firehouse Software. So it would have had to been done one way or another in the future. 411300 is meetings and attendance for the fire people. We're just doing more training, and that's not going to stop. So they're going to attend more training. A lot of it is free, but some of it is not. They've recently gone to things like elevator rescue classes in Connecticut and outside the area. I don't think we've ever expected that in the borough of Conshohocken we would need an elevator rescue class, but we need an elevator rescue class now. And we're gonna have at least 6 more of those units in operation within a year. So that's what that increase covers. And then the last one for the fire department is a fire marshal vehicle, which is the chief's vehicle, a fire chief's vehicle, repair and maintenance. That's an aging vehicle. It's a 2011 or 2010 vehicle. So it's at the end of its 10-year amortization cycle anyway. We're going to be looking to replace that next year. But it does require some more maintenance and repair, and we asked for an increase for that. We don't have any problems with any of the other vehicles because they're new, and they're under the 3-year warranties from the manufacturers. That's all I have on the fire side. Any questions on that? Okay, I'll move to licensing and inspections. Same thing, licensing and inspections. The 2 vehicles that we have there are not old, but they're past their warranties, so we have to allow for more maintenance on those vehicles. Those vehicles will be used for maybe 1, maybe 2 years, and we're going to move to the next generation of vehicles. We'll probably start with licensing and inspections for that. They will be the last gas vehicles. If I'm here, they're the last gas vehicles we'll have in licensing and inspection. We'll be moving to electric at that point with those 2 vehicles, or 3 vehicles, or how many ever code inspectors we have at the time. But temporarily, we do need to increase the repair and maintenance costs for those. The next line item, 413, 452, contracted computer services. We have a computer software increase based on the fact that we're going to be using some GIS software, the Geographic Information System software. In order to use that, we had an increased cost. So that covers that. Meetings and seminars, 2, code licensing and inspection has become a very technical, much more technical position than it was in the past. There's a lot of liability involved with licensing and inspections. They're referred to as code inspectors. They do have enforcement powers, and they does bear a lot of liability for the Borough of Conshohocken. So we do initiate a lot of training for them and send them to as much training as it becomes available. And there is now an increased cost in just the travel for that, because a lot of what the state is doing, which was free at one time, it's costing the municipality some money, but it's also having to send some of our people to different places in the state. One of my trainings, which was supposed to happen over the flood, was in Pittsburgh, and that was the only training that was available for that year. You have to go to Pittsburgh in order to get that training, and that was a required training. So that's the increase for there. It's $1,000. If there's no questions on that, I'll move to public services. Public services, vehicle fuel and vehicle fuel increase is just, that again is anecdotal. I got to base that on the fact that fuel prices have increased in the last year, and we didn't account for that in this year, but we actually are doing pretty well on our fuel costs. But if fuel costs stay at this level, we do need an increase. We do not plan in public services. There's no initiative right now for us in public services to use anything but gas or diesel vehicles, and these vehicles will be the last generation public services. Once electric commercial vehicles become available, we'll start moving in that direction. But at this point, we have to deal with fuel increases, both diesel and gas. Recycling and composite, it's basically because we are taking in more things to recycle. We do have, this year especially, we have a lot of trees come down in the Borough of Conshohocken. We had an increase in costs. Upper Merion Township is where we take our yard waste, and a lot of that, we had an increase there because of the way that they charged us. They didn't charge us by, they charged us by the load instead of by the actual tonnage. So we have to accommodate for some of those differences. 427, 470, CDL renewals, that's the commercial driver's license. We have more employees that will be turning over in Borough of Conshohocken. So that increase is $200 increase, but that's just to accommodate the fact that we'll have to be paying more CDL license fees. For public services, administrative, and streets, this is the way the budget's broke down. It's streets and sanitation, but these costs are very similar. We have to accommodate for the sanitation part, fuel costs, so we have to accommodate for the streets fuel costs. So generally the increases are well, over the last several years, it actually decreased, but because of the price of fuel now, we're looking at an increase. So we're hoping that it will stay within the $1,500 range we're asking for. Public services uniform increases, that's based on just the employees that we're going to, it looks like we're going to be hiring. We've had several turnovers in the department, and then we have one person that is definitely retiring in January, and we will also be looking to add an additional person. So we've asked for an increase in uniform costs for that. And equipment and repair and maintenance for streets and administration. Repair and maintenance for equipment in public services is just a complete unknown. You might have 1 year where you don't have anything, hardly anything, or you might have a year where everything breaks down. But recently, we did notice that we have a lot more equipment that has reached its end of its year or end of its age cycle, and we're going to be fixing that until we start to replace it. So we want to accommodate some more money for that. Any questions on any of that? I know I'm going through this real quick, but it's this is long-winded stuff, I know. And the last, everybody's good with that?
We appreciate you going through quickly, that's all.
Okay. 454239 is parks, tree, turf, and maintenance. That's basically what we talked about earlier. We've lost a lot of trees in the borough of Conshohocken. We do need to replace some of those. We also are going to have we're working to have a tree replenishment program that we're working with the EAC on to plant more trees in the borough of Conshohocken, the ones that we've lost publicly, and hopefully we'll be able to transfer that into some private entities, some residents who want to put trees on their property. So we're asking for an additional $10,000 on that. The tree and turf maintenance also covers chemicals that are used in that, and those costs have skyrocketed also because of just the state of the state right now. And the last thing is 454500, which is special events. So special events, our special events have become very popular. We've had to increase the amount of employees, public service wise, emergency management wise, fire department, part-time and full-time staff wise. So to accommodate costs from just to generally run the event, we're looking at $2,500 more. Some of the things we haven't accounted for in the past, just making sure that everybody had food and water and things like that. We want to make sure that those things are covered. I think for the last event we had, for the Fun Fest, we had 9 public service employees. We had 4 full-time, part-time firefighters just to cover that event, and the police department, the entire shift, and then they had 1 person dedicated to the event. So it takes about 20 people to run these events, and they're getting more popular. If you weren't at the Fun Fest until 8 o'clock at night, the other night you missed out because it was crowded until 8 o'clock at night. It was bigger than we've ever seen, and we've heard back from the businesses, and they've made more money and had more sales than they've had in 32 years. Some of them that have been here for 32 years have more sales that night than they've ever had on one night. So it works out good. That's the reason we're asking for that. Any questions on any of that? Okay, good.
All right, well, thanks. No other questions for Ray?
Well, I think I'm not allowed to ask any because I've been unmuting myself and got muted like 3 times.
Go ahead, Karen. We promise we
No.
won't.
I'm all set.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah.
You sure your dog wasn't hitting the mute button by accident?
I'm sure.
Can I just say, you know, running one of our bigger festivals for the year, I really do appreciate council support and Ray and George having all of his people available. I mean, it is an extraordinary feat to put on these festivals and do it safely. So, so thank you all, and I look forward to putting on more throughout the years here.
Thank you, Yaniv.
Okay. All right, well, we are going to move on to community development grants, zoning, and recurring capital. So we'll keep things moving. So for capital engineering projects, again, most of these are estimates and built into the budget as placeholders. The first one is the culvert at 7th. Been in discussions with Mr. Borkowski, whether or not we could collaborate and tie this project into his residential development. That would be an estimated cost of $116,000. 426 Old Elm is a small plot of land that is owned by a developer that we would potentially purchase and then turn into a rain garden. We've been working with the EAC as well on that. Our engineer is evaluating the project, but you're looking at potentially $25,000 for that. We are required through the MS4 program to complete a BMP project. Right now, we have it slated for potentially Sutcliffe Park. We are starting the design phase and the survey phase in 2021, but budgeting $80,000 for design and then have an additional 3 years to actually follow through and finish the project. So again, this is a portion of the entirety of the project, which is at the cost of about $500,000 that you're seeing built into the 2022 budget. And then the last thing under capital engineering, also under the MS4, we are required to update our stormwater ordinance. So that's about a cost of $25,000, which it's a process and it would start and would take the entirety of basically the fiscal year. So really from a capital engineering perspective, you're looking at a placeholder of about $246,000. The next item is transfer to debt service. This item is actually not needed. So as our loan amortizes and more money is going towards the principal and having to pay less interest, you actually funded your debt service and you have millage that's allocated specifically for debt service. So you no longer need to make a transfer to debt service. I wanted to leave this on here to highlight that fact that before you had to actually take funds that were allocated that could have been used for a capital improvement and put it towards debt service, but because you took the strategic decision to actually fund debt service, you no longer need this type of placeholder in your capital. So that's a positive. So that goes away. Traffic engineering projects and grants. Again, these are worked with and earmarked specifically through our traffic engineer, Brian Keaveney. But just an example, again, we would have to go for a lot of these grants. So again, they're placeholders, but we had the CMAC project along Fayette Street. The signalization that is wrapping up. So we have an earmarked $20,000 just to close out that project. We have looked at applying for another CMAC grant for Elm Street, which would line up the signalization along Fayette with Elm. So that's in there at $225,000. That's a match for the overall grant that would be required if we were to receive it. The mast arm grant, again, we are the recipient of it. Just because of COVID, there's a holdup on PennDOT. So that, again, is a carryover from this year of $50,000 when that grant actually goes forward, and that's a match. We applied for a TCDI grant with West Conshohocken. We were not a recipient, but if we were to apply again, which I have discussed with their manager, again, the $20,000 would be a match if we were to be a recipient of that grant. The road diet program, which your traffic engineer is currently working on doing an assessment. Again, if you review the results of that assessment and decide you wanted to move forward with it, it's approximately $120,000 from an engineering perspective. So that is in there as a placeholder. And then the Oak Street Railroad preemption will be required once the Oak Street crossing is complete. And that is a coordination between SEPTA, Matson Mill, and the borough. That $200,000 you see there would be our share of it. There is a portion of $175,000 of that, which would come from funding that Matson Mill is required to turn over to the borough in their land development plans. So again, a portion of that amount would be funded directly from the developer, but the full amount is budgeted at $635,000. We provide an appropriation to Narberth Ambulance specifically for one of their vans. That is $31,920, and that is an annual contribution that the borough gives to Narberth. I can't speak enough for Narberth Ambulance and how they work collaboratively with all of our administration. That's an easy, that to me should be built into our budget annually. And then the last item is grant matching. So there are grants that come up throughout the year, like the DEP 902 grant or the PICO Greener Regions grant or the DVRPC recreation grant. So we're always looking at potential grants that we could apply for. We need to have matching funds available to draw upon should we actually move forward with an application if we have a project that's applicable to something that's available. So our recommendation is to have $200,000 earmarked in the budget. Again, if there is no grant that we would go for, that $200,000 does not get expended and it stays and rolls over in the fund balance. We had RACB grant management in there for $15,000. And that again is the RACB grant that's specific to Amerisource Bergen and Keystone Property Group through the state. There's a stipulation in the agreements, the cooperation agreement between Amerisource Bergen, the Montgomery County RDA, and the borough, that there's some liability on the borough if the RACB grant expenditures are not processed correctly. That process has not started yet. So we had it earmarked for 2021. I have it on there again as a placeholder for potential consideration in 2022. So just drawing your attention to all of those items. Any questions on any of those recurring capital?
One thing, Stephanie,
Yes.
what about the curb cuts for Sutcliffe Lane with the handicap that I had mentioned to you that still have not?
So the curb cuts and the curb ramps would all be part of CDBG application, and we apply for those on a 3-year cycle. So when you mentioned them to me, I did have Karen McNair do an evaluation of the specific areas that we've looked at and whether or not they would be considered a priority at this point.
Okay, because I think it's because some people are getting tired of people using the driveways because of the way people come around the corner there. They can't cross the street with their coaches, I guess, because the curb is high, and so they use the driveways. And that's a concern.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions on those items?
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I'm going to finish out the line item increases on the remaining accounts. So if you turn in your packets to page 7, 404,314 is legal solicitor. So you'll see that the overall legal services line items did not increase, but I am reallocating dollars away from special counsel into our solicitor. So we are moving away from needing special counsel for specific reasons. So I'm reallocating dollars. If we can, we will utilize our solicitor to a greater extent, which is why you see an increase on that solicitor line and a decrease on the special counsel line. If you flip to page 14, the court reporter. So this is just 414,319. This is just in light of our lengthy zoning hearings and also our number of applications. We're in a position right now where we're almost needing to schedule 2 meetings a month. We're trying not to for efficiency purposes, but if the need arises, and I can't say enough about Bobby Jo Merciades and her administrative skills and kind of keeping it all straight for all of us. But there is an increase in there simply because we have a greater need for a court reporter, which is required because it is an actual legal entity. I'm going to keep going. If you switch to page 16, 445380, so you'll see an increase in parking garage fees. So what's built into the number currently at 62,500 is 32,000 for a 2-tower bridge structural item and $30,000 for the 2-tower bridge maintenance. And as you'll remember, those 2 figures were negotiated with the Pulvers for use of the garage during business hours and non-business hours, and that was in exchange, again, for money that related to the UDAG loan. So those dollars are factored into that increase. What is also factored into the increase is the $23,000 that's due to the Sora garage once that goes online for the 150 public spaces. So you see the increase of around $22,600 specifically because that Sora garage and the 150 parking spaces that are going to be available 24/7 are going to go online at some point next year. So we have to factor it into the budget because that amount is going to be due. And I believe that is all for the operational line item increases. Are there any questions as it pertains to any of the capital presentations or the line item discussions that we've had so far this evening?
Steph, I just have a question. The parking garage fees, the increase for the 150 parking spaces, we're still looking at potentially metering some of those spaces?
Yes, so we will definitely be charging. We will be metering those spaces that we will be using Park Mobile. So there'll be signage, not actual meters. So you'll see an increase on the revenue side with an increase on the expenditure side.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, if there's no other questions on the line items or the presentations, then I am going to, at this time, just kind of do some overarching budget highlights and additional considerations before we move into the actual capital worksheet and the decision-making for our capital initiatives moving forward. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay. So when we're talking about revenues, I just want everyone to be aware that in 2021, so our current year-to-date revenues are at 94% as of September 10th, 2021. In 2022, if you're looking at your revenues in the overall totals of revenues in your packet, you can expect an estimated increase of around $860,000, and the majority of that is coming from your tax base for EIT and BPT. So your business is strong, and we don't make those estimates on our own. We work directly with Berkheimer, who looks at trends and evaluates the markets and kind of provides some estimates that are out there for us. I think it's important to highlight that if you look at 1/1/2021 to 4/30/2021, and you compare that to the same time frame in 2019, you have an increase in EIT of about 12.85%, or around $203,000. So regardless of COVID, you're still seeing an increase from your business operating and your tax revenue through that avenue, which is very positive. I know that when we were in the budget cycle last year, we were talking about having to be conservative and only increasing revenues around 5%. We're still being somewhat conservative, a little bit less conservative. We're looking at around a 7% increases versus a 5% increase. because basically all of your tax collectors are telling you that their estimates, if they're looking at trends, are expecting an increase in EIT and BPT. Another highlight from a revenue perspective is you have over a $500,000 decrease in fund balance. So with that decreased reliance on fund balance, that means, you know, your revenues and expenditures, they're becoming more financially stable, more financially sound. I will urge caution on being too excited though on that, because you are moving into 2 years of contract negotiations, both with the police and AFSCME. So that will, we'll see what those results end up and what the impact on the budget is for that. Some other highlights and trends just to discuss. If you look at the overall revenue production, some of the things that stuck out for me that I look at it from a quarterly basis is your permitting revenues, your L&I revenues are historically high if you look over a course of numerous years. So to me, that means production in those operating areas are extremely efficient and thriving. Your taxes are extremely strong. Your SORA parking fees, which Tina just asked and highlighted, they're going to need to be assessed. We'll put an estimate into the budget for 2022 as what we think those revenues could look like. But again, we won't have real numbers for you until probably a 2 or 3 year cycle when we see actually how that garage operates. In terms of recreation, if you look at the revenue numbers, your recreation rental fees are low. That's due to COVID. There really is nothing that we could do for that specifically in 2021. The good news is your program fees are high. So while they might not be actually utilizing our facilities for rentals like parties, sports camps, etc., they are participating in the programs that we are offering through the recreation department. And that's in large part because of some innovation on Lauren's part to get people outdoors, to use, you know, circulation, doors open, you know, kind of re-strategize how you look at recreation in the COVID era. One thing we have to keep in mind is if you look at the police revenue lines, those revenue lines are lower. They're historically lower if you look kind of at trends. So we're going to start having a conversation in terms of production, what that means, and whether or not those numbers need to decrease to realistically line up with what's being produced fiscally over the year, or whether there needs to be a conversation with the chief in terms of where there could be some deficiencies in terms of what the expectation is in terms of revenue generation. So again, just overarching highlights if you asked me to look at and pull out pieces that stand out to me, who's looking at it from an everyday basis. Any questions on revenues? Okay, so overarching items for expenditures. To date, you are at 47% of expenditures. If you factor in your transfers to your reserve funds, you'd be at 54% of the budget. So you are in a good financial position where you have strong revenues coming in and fiscally responsible spending going out. I'll draw your eye to some highlights. The healthcare renewal is not finalized yet. So because of COVID, Divot offered a 2-year option where your second year would be capped at 6.5%. They are expecting the market to go up drastically due to COVID. We are capped going into 2022 at a 6.5% increase. I don't know, I don't have numbers yet in front of me. They're released in October as to what our renewal would be. What's built into your budget in front of you tonight as a draft is a 5% increase. We do have some increases in the healthcare line items. We had numerous individuals that either were married or had families, and those plans are just more expensive. So you'll see slight increases. So what's built into your draft budget is a 5% increase in your healthcare renewal, plus certain changes in plans based off of employee changes. We are waiting on final numbers from Divot, and that's a mid-October release. So when I'm back in front of you in November, those numbers will be in the budget that's presented to you. Any questions on healthcare?
No.
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 In regards to workers' comp, same thing. Those numbers in your budget were estimated with the same rate classes. So our numbers of employees per rate class are pretty much the same. So we don't expect a major change or a major increase. You're looking at around a $300,000 estimated workers' comp cost. I can tell you that I got preliminary numbers. I actually got them on Monday, and the renewal of what they're potentially proposing is the same, if not slightly decreased from 2021. So that's good news. So those numbers should not drastically change in the final budget that's presented to you in November. Questions on workers' comp?
No.
No.
Okay, so property liability and auto insurance numbers. So we did receive notice from Divot that based off the market, we should expect anything up to an 11% increase on our property liability and auto numbers. So that is what's built into your draft budget. You see an 11% increase. The good news is that I received a 2022 premium contribution estimate on Monday based off our exposures and our estimated exposures. And we seem to have not been affected. It appears as though our renewal, our net premium contribution is going to be pretty much the same as our previous net contribution. So that is a good thing. So again, I'm waiting for final numbers. We were conservative in presenting a draft budget to you. So the 11% is built in there for all property liability and auto. So what I am expecting is that overall cost to decrease when the final budget is presented to you in November. Questions on that?
No.
The Borough of Conshohocken, their unemployment, much like the trust where we're part of a larger municipal group that buys into a trust and we pool share for our insurances, we do the same thing for our unemployment. It's actually through an association, through the Boroughs Association. So you'll see in the budget that the unemployment rates did double. It's unfortunate. It's a reality of 2020 and 2021. I can tell you that it's a little bit frustrating from the borough standpoint because our staff, we didn't have any unemployment claims. But again, it's simply tied to the fact that we were part of this association. They had an increase. We're all affected by it. So if you see the increase in the budget, that's the reasoning why. It's not a huge hit, but it is something to point out. On your revenue side, your pension system state aid has not been released by the Auditor General, and just for the new members on the call or the public on the call, that pension system state aid is what is the borough's share of the statewide aid that's provided to each municipality to help with the pension liabilities. So we get a portion around, usually around $300,000 that comes into the borough from the state to help fund the liability for the pensions. The good news on the expenditure side is that the MMOs and the pension obligations decreased, and that is due directly to the strength of the market and the investments. We talked about legal, BPT, pensions, IT, the emergency management. So I'm just giving everybody a heads up that moving into the end of 2021, you're going to most likely see an over encumbered line item that's directly related to Storm Ida. We are in the process though of submitting our claims to Divot and FEMA for financial assistance and reimbursement. And we talked about parking. So I'm just going to move quickly into some personnel highlights. So what is in front of you in your draft budget is a 3% increase for non-uniform, and understand that that 3% increase then carries through for salary, FICA, Medicare, ADD, life, disability, etc. The police CBA numbers are all built into your budget. The AFSCME CBA numbers are all built into your budget. Included in your budget for your personnel numbers is an additional part-time firefighter. Included in your budget, we are still budgeting for one of our police officers who was terminated. We do not know the nature of what that court case will end up being. So we have to continue budgeting regardless of that outcome until we know what the final outcome is. There is a new public services labor position that is added. Understand that that is a lower tier financial number in the CBA. Those lower tiered hires, again, are replacing retiring public service members that were part of the higher tier. So while you're adding a body, you're not looking at a drastic increase in costs because you have older members of the higher tier that are retiring and you're hiring more employees on the lower tier. So it ends up kind of being a wash. We talked about health insurance plan increases. Recreation, there's some slight deviations in the recreation personnel. As everyone is aware, Madison Orler resigned from her position as administrative assistant. We've hired a new employee, Rachel. She is a resident in the borough of Conshohocken. She has a very impressive resume. We had to give her a slight increase within the range of what our administrative assistants are currently. So we have salary ranges for our positions, and that's based off of evaluations done in Montgomery County. So that is within the range. We are looking to this year in the budget, we have budgeted for a recreation program coordinator. So I know that when Ray and I sit down and we kind of strategize over the course of our entire organizational structure, it's very important to both of us that there's continuity and consistency in all of our major operations. Recreation is one of those areas where we have a director and then we don't really have much supporting staff. So the idea behind the recreation coordinator, there's also going to be, is exactly that. It's a additional person who can carry out the recreational duties. We've also discussed numerous times about recreation's evolving nature in the borough of Conshohocken and kind of additional responsibilities that we need to parcel out as to whether they're public services or they're recreation. We're finding that there are more needs as it relates to events and rentals that are occurring with recreation where we're going to need some additional help down the road. So again, it's built in there. We slightly changed the salary structures to reflect kind of the duties and responsibilities of what those positions should be. And to counter the increases on those full-time positions, we did decrease our summer camp counselor positions while increasing summer camp director hours. So we're kind of getting to a point with recreation where we're pinpointing our successes and where those efficiencies lie and putting our dollars and our resources into those line items and then kind of backing out of maybe areas that we thought would be successful that weren't successful. So again, conversations to be had down the line, but just if you're looking at the numbers and wondering what the percentage increases, that's kind of where we're at. So if you look at overall personnel cost increases per department, for the police, you're looking at around a $43,000 increase. For recreation, you're looking at around a $44,000 increase. For public works, you're looking at an $82,000 increase. Fire is at a $5,300 increase, and administration is around a $41,000 increase. So your total personnel budget increase moving from 2021 to 2022 is around $216,000. So if you're looking at what makes up that approximate 2.53% increase from 21 to 22, 216,000 of that is personnel costs, leaving the extra 135,000 being operational cost increases. And that is kind of an overarching dive into your 2022 budget. So any questions on operations, personnel, before we move into pinpointing our capital initiatives for 2022?
Sounds like that's a no, Steph.
Nope. All right, I see lots of shaking heads, so we'll take it and move on.
Can we have a bio break?
Yeah, we wanna do a quick bathroom break.
That would be nice.
All right. 2-minute break.
All righty.
Okay.
back again.
Think we have everybody? I think Tina's logging on and logging back off.
Yes.
Hey, Britt,
Yes.
do you want me to share for the worksheet?
It's up to you. I can do it. I have it ready.
Oh, of course you have it ready. Okay, you just can do it.
Okay.
Hey, Steph, can I ask you a question while we're waiting?
Sure.
If there's any value in it, then you can restate it. So for our IT, everything is outsourced, right?
Correct.
So do we know that our, the IT service, the service fees that we have and any of the other like technology and hardware, all of that, that we're getting the most competitive pricing? So even just starting with our IT team, whoever we use, just because it's a common theme throughout, obviously every department needs it.
Yes. I can tell you that we have individuals on staff who do their research and question our IT professionals to ensure that we are getting the correct cost. I would say that I'm not going to say that we wouldn't look at doing an RFP for IT services in the near future to do an evaluation of our consultant and ensure that we are competitive and that it is that we are getting the best service. I just think that in-house we had to handle some coordination between administration and police department, and that was a priority in terms of the service provider that we had and with the new building and kind of where we were with our operations. And I think we're moving in the right direction, and there could be a need in the near future to evaluate our IT provider. But
Okay.
I can tell you that the IT recommendations, suggestions are questioned, and they are pushed as we go along.
I think it absolutely, and with the response I expected, I know you guys are on top of everything, but.
Okay. So I did want to make, as Tina is going back and forth, I did just want to make one clarification. So if you look at 409-450, and I don't know if you saw that I was on the phone and Ray was on the phone, and just so everybody knows, I'm in my office and Ray is in the conference room next to me. So we were on the phone talking to each other, which I think is funny, but for 409-450, I know that there was lots of questions as to why there's a $37,000 increase. And I just wanted to point out that there's an extra zero listed there. Unfortunately, there's a typo, and that should read 3,700, not 37,000. So Ray just wanted to thank me for putting him in the spot for a half an hour trying to explain that number when it was incorrect. So I'm apologizing.
Oh dear goodness. Well, that is why. So, okay, so then obviously it's 2,500 and 3,700 are the numbers.
No, it's 25,000, Karen, but the increase would only be 3,700. So it's 3,700 plus 2,500, not 25,000 plus 37,000. So the number for going in.
But that's the difference. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Well, going from 25 to 62 is 37.
It's 37,000, and I'm just saying that the increased number is incorrect. We're going to get you a revised number. We're going to look at the warranties and make sure the numbers are correct and get that back to you. Right, Ray? That makes sense?
Yes, it's 3,700, not 37,000. I looked at it 4 or 5 times, so I don't know.
We're not sure. We have to get back to you. Well, I'll actually send that line item specifically out to you and we'll break it down.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Thanks, Steph.
Okay, so we are going into capital and confirming lists, confirming funding sources, and setting initiatives and goals. So we're going to start with the immediate near future and what our department requests were, our priority lists, recommendations, and then what council's final list is. Britt, can you just slide it over so they can see each section? So as we work through the worksheet, again, the list over on your left that you're seeing in front of you is the full request of each department. So it's everything that was presented to you. You then move into a department priority list, which of course is everything. So same exact list as what was presented. I then look at it from a borough manager recommendation and evaluate based off of available funds. And start breaking it down. And then of course, tonight, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the full list and we're going to fill in council's capital budget item list. So everything you heard tonight and make decisions on what we're going to fund for 2022. So let's start with the police department. So you heard vehicles, server, licensing, watch guard, backup drive, computer workstations, and firewall. Do you have any indication or inclination of what you would like to fund for 2022 off of that list for the police department?
I'm fine with everything at this point.
I am also fine with everything.
Me too.
Okay, so Britt, if you can just select everything, then we'll go down the list.
No, I'm good.
Okay, then we'll move into recreation. So we heard rebuild basketball courts at Aubrey Collins, replace the community center entrance doors, replace the community center gymnasium doors, renovate the locker rooms, multi-purpose room divider, and refinish the gymnasium floor. Any follow-ups or immediate questions or feelings on what you'd like to fund?
So on the community center locker rooms, it sounds like a lot of that may be aesthetics, and maybe it really does need to be done. We might have less utilization of it because of that. But I think I have some questions around that.
Okay.
So I'm kind of leaving that open on
Okay.
there. And on the multi-purpose room divider, it sounds like it really needs to be the way that she described it. I don't think that we can go another way. I think the rest of it, the doors sounded like it was really something necessary.
Yeah, do we really need the room divider now? Can that wait for a year?
Does it need to? So I guess the question is,
I'm
what?
just asking.
Yeah, no, I guess the question that I have before we go, and I might have missed it because my camera was acting up.
Tina,
The
you need to
total,
speak up.
the total asks came out to what dollar figure on their wish list?
So the total ask,
175.
if you're looking at everything that we discussed in terms of funding, it's $1,702,245. So let's just say it's 1.7 mil.
Tina, are you speaking specific to rec?
No, to capital, to all the capital asks.
So all capital, Tina, was 1.7 million.
Okay, and what percentage is that to our total budget?
So that is,
Because I like to back into it to see, because, you
it's
know,
about 11.9%.
and historically we've been putting what percentage of our budget towards capital? And it's varied a little bit, I know.
But I can tell you that it is in the same ballpark percentage wise as this year. The year before would have been higher because we purchased $1 million fire truck.
Okay, all right. That just helps me kind of frame where we're going.
Okay. So I'm okay with the renovations for the locker room. I've been in it multiple times this past year and have seen what it looks like, and I really do think that and the room divider are something that will definitely benefit that community center, along with the other asks that she has.
So I think something that I would just like everyone to keep in mind as we're making decisions about the community center is that the renovations we've done to date have been mostly to get a space that isn't necessarily set up to function in 2020 standards in terms of how rec functions, and get it to a position where it can function so that it can serve a purpose. And we're finding that it is highly utilized. So something we need to really talk about, because we had discussed HVAC, and a major cost to that building is whether we're going to continue to pump additional dollars into its existing structure, or whether we really need to talk about, you know, is it more cost effective to knock down and rebuild so that it's more efficient and conducive to today's environment. And I'm not talking about any time soon. There's lots of feedback. I'm talking about long term. So 5 to 10 year plan. So as we're making decisions about what we're doing now, clearly we can't stay stagnant. We need to do upgrades and provide amenities that allow it to continue to be a service to the community. But I don't think we're at the position where we should be pumping hundreds of thousands of dollars into the facility when we really should be stepping back and looking at it from a larger scope.
So Steph, looking at your recommendations, the only thing that you are not recommending is the basketball court.
Well, that's my recommendation based off of dollars that are available.
Okay.
And where we had put money already. So if I'm looking at this, I think safety, we should be making we should be focused on safety first. So the doors to me are a no-brainer. We have an issue, we need to address it.
We absolutely do.
The gymnasium floor, I think she has a valid point that you can only refinish a gym floor so many times until it just becomes unsalvageable. So and it's highly utilized.
Right.
I agree with Ray's assessment of the basketball courts at Aubrey Collins and Lauren's assessment of basketball courts. It just has to be whether or not that's something you want to do next year, along with everything else that you're looking at.
Okay. Go ahead.
And then the locker rooms, to me, we've made decisions in that building, like new flooring and rugs and paint, new furniture, everything just to kind of elevate it to get us through the next 5 to 10 years. So I wouldn't steer away from that initiative. I think that has positioned us in a place where recreation has been able to be successful without really allocating hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if $36,000 is going to get us elevated locker rooms that buys us 10 years before we have to make a major decision on a funding source, then I think it's worthwhile.
Right. And the room divider is a no-brainer. I mean, to be able to split that room and use it twice as much for her is a great asset, I think.
So Ray, from a facility perspective, do you have any take on the recreation items?
The only thing I would say is that I know there was some discussion on the multi-purpose room and what type of divider that should be. Things like, I do think that what we've discussed is to get this to a point where it can be utilized as best it can at this point, and then look in a completely different direction down the line. And I think the things that she's asking for in this budget will get through a period of time where the discussions can be moved towards whether the entire building should be replaced. I know $100,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it depends on who you're talking to. And somebody's dealing with this stuff all the time, it's not. It's not. For the amount of things that you're going to be getting for the $100,000, it doesn't seem like it's not going to have value.
And I also want to point out that the funding source for this is completely from the Park and Rec impact fee. So this is not coming anything from real estate taxes. This is coming from a pot of money that has to be used within a certain period of time. And so if we're looking at it from a Park and Rec impact fee where we have about $300,000 in there today, and understanding we know what's coming from the next development projects.
Right.
I agree with Lauren and Ray. I think that if you're looking at $175,000 and you're including Aubrey Collins in that equation, then that's use of funds that specifically were earmarked by developers to be used for that purpose.
And Ray, I mean, I know every time I go down by Aubrey Collins Park, that basketball court is being utilized. And I know that you're out and about much more than I am. So I think it's a good investment.
It is being used more and more. It's also, remember what we're going to have down there in the near future. So 51 Washington Street will be built in the next year. We're also going to have Matson Mill. So that's walking distance to that park, and we're seeing the park in general, utilized much more than it's ever been, and the basketball court is a part of that. Whether that's the essential part of it, it's probably, if you look at it from the money perspective, it's probably cheaper to fix the basketball court to the point that it's utilized than to try to expand the park in any other way. I mean, the two pieces of equipment are going to cost $50,000 for that park. So the basketball court is utilized. It cannot be just patched anymore. It is a safety and liability issue. So if that move is going to be made, I recommend that it be made fully and not just piecemeal.
Right. And the basketball court gives a whole other level of age to participate in the park. From the children that go into the playground to teenagers and young adults. Correct?
Correct.
It does. It is the walking park for the people in those neighborhoods. There's
Right.
no reason to take a car. Everybody from those neighborhoods and the Londonderry Riverwalk complexes walk there.
Right.
So for
And
me,
then
what I
Lauren,
would say,
So
go ahead.
what
Steph,
I would say,
from
I think
I'm
that as the borough would be, if we couldn't do the 175, I feel that the borough would be better served by Aubrey Collins than the locker rooms. I think in terms of utilization, how many people it would reach. So if we were in that position, I know there's a difference of what, 14,000, but that is,
So
that's
I
my
would
opinion.
say that the Parks and Recreation is the one area where we don't have a funding issue. The dollars
All
are
right.
there. If you want to spend 175, you can spend 175 and you don't touch any resident dollars.
Go for it.
That's my recommendation. If we have the impact fee money there, and we can do that, that's one more
Right.
bonus back to the borough residents.
So on that note, I'm going to ask, because it's not on here and I don't know if it falls into this area. The park at the B field. Every year.
So the only reason why the B Field Playground is not specifically on the list for 2022 is because the cost of materials due to COVID and the equipment.
Okay.
And the increase, like Ray said, with the cost of wood, it's the same for the cost of equipment. You're looking at potentially a 20 to 40% increase in the amount it would cost us to do the playground in 2022. And we're hoping those costs return to normal, and we would put the B field back in the cycle because that needs to be finished. So
Correct.
that's earmarked as a 2023 expenditure out of the impact fund.
Okay. That's a perfectly good explanation.
Okay.
Just so you know, we even ordered parts for the equipment, the existing equipment there, and it's now been 2 to 3 months and we haven't been able to get it. So things like a slide and things have been ordered for
Right.
that park, and
Okay.
we just simply can't get it.
Okay.
I think that I know personally that playground is highly utilized.
Oh my God, yeah.
It wasn't utilized before. It's now a main attraction. It's if you look at what happens there on a Saturday and Sunday morning. Personally, it's there. It's
Right.
It's busy. So it definitely needs to get done. I just think if you're looking at cost efficiencies, we're unfortunately going to have to wait a year.
That's a perfectly good explanation. So, and you know, the residents actually don't complain about the condition of the park. The little kids love what is there. And as Ray knows, as he cringes, they love those diggers.
Don't
Oh,
touch the diggers.
Huh?
Don't touch the diggers. The
You
diggers
won't
are
touch
old.
that. I know, but those little kids love those diggers. They just do.
I know. All right. So what I'm hearing from the conversation is for right now, we're gonna put everything on the list. We'll keep it at 175.5, and we'll work down to our funding sources and see where we land. We're good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Emergency management, again, this is kind of what we discussed, having this contingency in place in the capital that council has already approved. We picked a $50,000 number that could change depending on the funding sources as we go down. So Britt, if you can, never mind, we'll scroll down in a second. Any thoughts on that contingency being in the budget and handling it in that manner?
I'm fine with it being in the budget.
Yes.
Is there anyone who isn't fine with it? Okay,
Nope,
there you
I
go,
think we
Steph.
can keep moving.
Okay. Fire department uniform. So to me, this is just kind of a no-brainer. It has to happen. Does anyone
Correct.
differently?
Correct.
No.
Everyone's okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So we are at public services. So Ray gave us a nice presentation. Any thoughts on items to include or not include?
I'm
All right.
fine with everything being included.
I will say from a public services perspective, this is an extremely reasonable capital ask,
Right.
especially given the amount of work that the public services department has taken on.
Yes. And with the way that the borough is growing and you know, so much more is needed just because of that in itself. So I'm okay with it.
All right, Britt, add them all in.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so because to Tina's earlier comments, one great feedback from the staff that these are the people that are out there and here's what they need from a safety perspective and things that are making the job easier for them. Again, in terms of safety, ROI, and Ray, you had responses for everything. It all made sense to me. So I don't know. I think you go 96.7.
I know. All right, so Tino says 96.7. We're all in 96.7.
Yes.
And then everybody understands that the roof at Elm Street is an issue. Depending on where we land, that could be a contingency or a supplemental appropriation if we need it.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a quick question. What kind of a roof would you put on? Would it be the new metal kind?
No, I wouldn't. Honestly, for that building, it would be the least expensive, which is, it can't be a flat roof. It's going to be a tar roof, and it's going to be in sections. That's what they would put it in 3 sections.
Okay.
But again, that's most of this is based on what the current cost for wood and everything else is going to be. It's a lot of wood and it's a lot of labor costs for that particular job.
Okay. Thanks, Ray. Okay, Steph.
So we are on to communications and special events. So I will say that when I met with Kate Cosman to discuss her capital initiatives, my instruction to her was to bring in our Laro experts, which are the AV installers and also the individuals that do the training, actual recording and broadcasting. I did ask them for a 5-year plan. If you're looking at a building that was built 5 years ago and you're looking at technology, which quite frankly in a 5-year standard, 6-year standard is outdated. We also haven't used the equipment now, which is going to be for 18 months or whatnot, to give us kind of a 5-year plan and lay it out for us. It was more cost effective to upgrade the systems in a package, I can tell you, than trying to parcel it out, because it's technology and the nature of that technology to make certain replacements and not others at the same time, then you're almost going back in the cycle and having to replace the piece of equipment that you did 3 years ago. If then you're trying to apply, let's just use the microphone, for example. You're getting a new microphone and you're trying to tie it into a electronic system, which is the actual recording device. If they're not purchased together, then it becomes less cost efficient because then you're trying to find a model that is back to a previous electronic system. Why is there so much feedback?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why do we need 4 wireless mics?
We don't. Right now we have 2, and we just found that when we had larger meetings or more public, we were always looking for additional mics. So it was more kind of evaluating the way the room operated and our needs moving forwards. The wireless mic and specifically allows us to kind of pass and be more mobile and You know, the way we operate that public meeting room is probably going to look slightly different than it did before COVID. So we're just
Hi,
thinking
babe.
for health and safety reasons that if you have more microphones, you can disinfect. If one has to go down, then you have others to draw upon. It's just not as simple as it used to be.
Okay, thank you.
So my only comment on there is going in the opposite direction. If we need to replace those TVs,
Mhm.
I think, I don't know, I think it would be worth just pricing how much of a difference it is to actually increase the size.
Okay.
I think that they're so small. Just something to look at. If it's substantial.
Yeah, no, I do have notes from questions that were taken during each segment. And I do have that down, Karen. So we will look at it to see if there's a larger screen that's available that fits with the rest of the technology and see what that price difference is. That's not a problem.
Okay,
They're
thanks.
90-inch, right?
I believe so, Anita. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my
I
head.
think they were 90 when we put them in.
Is there anyone who feels as though the $40,000 is not appropriate? I mean, to me, this is something we have to do. We are in a building that is now 5-6 years old. Technology is 5-6 years old. It's hard to, it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it has been.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
Fine with it.
Okay. The next item is grant matching and the RACP grant management. I'm always going to be a proponent of having this sit as a placeholder. So for now, Britt, can we just put it in there and then we'll work with those numbers? Okay, administrative services, sonic wall, staff computer, council iPads, and storage cabinets. Any thoughts?
I'm okay with everything.
I'm
Yeah,
okay
you
with it.
answered-
Okay.
You answered my question earlier about IT and the any of the hardware. I'm good.
Okay, Steph, I think you're good on that item.
Okay, so then we get down to capital engineering projects, traffic engineering projects, and Norberth ambulance. And I have all of these already built in because they somewhat are not an option as terms of us not doing them. So if we get down to the end of the worksheet without talking about any council goals and initiatives, which we'll talk about in a second, we look at the funding sources that are available to us. So the park and rec impact fee, again, this moves with whatever there is funds to fully fund the 175.5. So Britt, I don't know if on your sheet you can just change that to from 125.5 to 175.5 so they can see it. Thank you. Okay, if you look at the capital fund balance forward from 2021, there's about an estimated $800,000, which you'll carry forward into your 2022 fiscal year. As I mentioned before, Matson Mill owes the borough $175,000 in their agreement. So that would go directly towards some of the traffic engineering capital project costs. And then we have a scheduled capital reserve transfer in 21 of $500,000, which we would factor into a funding source. We would transfer it into capital instead of capital reserve if that's where we land in terms of costs.
Okay.
Steph, remind me what our capital reserve balance is currently.
Our capital reserve balance is, give me 1 second. capital reserve balance, Tina, is $6,589,235.
Then I agree with it should go to capital.
Okay, so those are the funding sources that are available. You have approximately $1,650,500 to fund your capital projects. And what you're really looking at is a deficit of about $51,000 that is not covered from the costs that are listed.
Okay. I think that's great, Steph.
Well, hold on. I just want to check something real fast to make sure.
And what did you just say, 51,000?
Yeah, some things did not carry over. Oh, hold on one second. 97, 41, 215, 53, 912, 1724. Yeah. So with the amount of dollars, so right now you have $1,650,500 to fund your capital projects, and you have $1,702,245 earmarked to spend. So what you don't, you're over $51,000. So you really need to find somewhere in your list to remove $51,745.34 in order to carry out all of these initiatives in 2022. So I can tell you that my recommendation would be that you take $50,000 off of your grant matching earmark and you
Okay.
call.
Let me ask, if you do that,
Yes.
and for whatever reason, the state of Pennsylvania decides that they're going to make all kinds of grants available because there's lots of money available.
Yep.
Would we be able to pull grant matching from a reserve?
You would be able to pull grant matching from a reserve. I can tell you, Tina, that the majority of the grants that we probably would be looking for are somehow to infrastructure, roads, or parks. So in that case, you could pull from your park and rec impact fee for a grant match for recreation. And then remember that you have specific traffic engineering capital projects and capital engineering projects that are related to grants. So let's just say the TCDI grant that you have $40,000 earmarked for, the state decides not to open them back up, but they open up a Pico Go grant, then you have the money built in there. So yes, we would either be pulling them from your capital line item, or we would be pulling them from a reserve.
So I am comfortable then to pull it from the grant matching with that in mind.
Okay, so if that's the case, then your grant matching becomes $148,254.66. You then have the full amount needed to fund all of the capital initiatives recommended by your department heads, with contingencies built in for emergency management and reserves sitting for grant matching. I think that this is a good start. So the only thing we have to talk about still is if there are any specific council goals or initiatives that we need to add to this capital budget and find the dollars to do so. So I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to discuss for 2022.
I do. I assume this would fall under when we're saying goals and initiatives. But I think in recognition of Ike and Bob's time on Borough Council, the service that they've provided, which I think is like 16 and 20 years, I think it would be appropriate for us to get park benches in each of their respective parks with maybe, a little plaque or something on it recognizing their service. So one in Aubrey Collins and one in Sutcliffe.
So I can tell you that I believe the last park bench quote we got was approximately around $925. So if you're talking about two, you're really looking at around $2,000 to complete that initiative. If that's something that you feel strongly about.
I personally, obviously, recommending it, and I do feel strongly about it. That's a long time to serve the borough, and there should be some kind of sort of permanent fixture somewhere that recognizes that.
I think that it's a really nice gesture, Karen. I think it's something also that we can also discuss in 2022.
In 2022, still recognizing them.
Yes.
What difference would that make if we discuss it then versus budgeting for it now?
Steph, what's our capital threshold number? $5,000, right?
Usually 5,000, yes.
So that would be out of operations anyway.
So I think it's definitely, I mean, the amount of years combined, I agree with Karen that it is
Right.
unbelievable and it should be captured. So maybe what we do is we take a ballpark figure, maybe it's $2,500, and we ensure that it is built into an operational line item, and that way we're good to go with those park benches. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. And I do like the idea of doing that sooner than kind of what we've been doing for some of the historical people that gave their life to the borough.
Right.
Right.
Would it take 20 years for Jerry McTammany?
Something like that.
Okay.
Steph,
All right.
I'm sure we can find that in operational budget.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Okay.
we'll make sure the funds are there.
Current numbers, we can do it. We can, based on our current numbers, we may be able to do it off of our current budget.
All
Thank you.
Karen, I think that it's sounds like we're a go.
Good. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Any other council
That's it.
initiatives?
The only other one I have is just looking at the Main Street plan from the comprehensive plan standpoint. And that's probably not something that we can necessarily do all on our own. So
No.
we might want to earmark some dollars for consulting for that.
So I have planning and architectural fees in the operational budget, Tina, at 408,314 at 25,000, and those planning dollars would be earmarked specifically for a consultant to come in for the Main Street comprehensive plan evaluation, much like
Okay,
we did for the comp plan itself.
Perfect. So that's the only thing I have on my list for this year.
All right, well, hearing no other initiatives to be added to the capital list, then it sounds like our capital list is finalized for 2022. It also sounds like we have funds earmarked specifically for benches to honor our two council members. I have the Main Street, so it sounds like we're good. Britt, can you just save that file?
Yes, I'll save it.
Just a few other final thoughts as it pertains to capital. We talked about the community center and long-term goals that we're going to look at. Haynes and Salvati is a conversation that we're going to have in 2022 to discuss what we'd like to do with it going into 2023. So we know in 2023, the B Field Playground is going to be on the list. We're going to look at Haynes and Salvati as well. We should do that, and I'm saying over the course of next year, because we'll have the money specifically from Equus and 400 West Elm to use that $102,000 for Haynes and Salvati. A concept that administration has discussed is a second community garden. So I'm throwing it out there. We'll have discussions on it, and we'll go from there. We talked about the B Field Playground and Field. On our list, consideration is also going to be the Sutcliffe Park Trail and its renovation. And then the last thing on our list from an administrative recommendation for the long term is a Caldwell Lane trail sidewalks that leads to Sutcliffe, and then any potential open space with the purchase of property along Caldwell Lane. So again, not for 2022, but I think it's important that you understand where our heads are and what we talk about when we're going into these budget conversations. And that's kind of where we landed in terms of goals and admin recommendations. It's a long-term plan for the community center. It's Haynes and Salvati, B Field Playground, Sutcliffe Trail, Caldwell Lane, trails to Sutcliffe, and open space.
So Steph, just for future conversations, when we're tossing around ideas for Haynes and Salvati, a tennis court might be pretty cool.
Okay, well, I will add it. I will add it to the list, and that's going to be a discussion in 2022 that I think we're all looking forward to, because the last thing I'm going to leave you with in terms of the conversation on council initiatives in the long term is I kind of want you to understand where you're falling in terms of budget cycles and the reality of the influx of money that's coming in. So I think over the next 2 years, we need to finish our park program. We started it, we should finish it. Haynes and Salvati, the B Field, then the park system is complete. That's a major accomplishment that should be highlighted. If you look at the next couple of budget cycles, where you're really landing is if you look around late 2024, 2025, you're sort of positioning yourselves right now to be in a prime position to start looking at funding that larger capital project and taking on more debt. And I say that specifically because outside of the AFSCME and the police contracts, your budget is pretty much stable. Expenditures should be around the same.
What do you just speak to? Where'd you go?
That's like, but the thing that is going to change are some of your revenues, and you need to keep this in mind. So we know that the EIT and BPT is estimated to continue to increase. That's around $860,000. In the next 2 years, you're also going to have the completion of some major construction projects, and that's going to increase your real estate tax base. And that's going to look around approximately $600,000 increase from Sora, Matson, Mill 7, Tower Bridge, Equus, and 51 Washington Street. On top of that, you're also going to have rent from the sewer authority once the MOU is complete. That's going to be around $200,000. So that positions you where you're looking at an influx of approximately $1.6 million as you get towards the end of 2024 and 2025. You also have strategically made the decision to fund your debt, which was a huge decision and put you in a position where you've now opened up more doors. So you're going to have your current debt funded and being paid off. You're going to have an influx of revenue. We need to try to keep our expenditures and revenues stable at that point, outside of the contracts. And where that gets you to is kind of strategically positioning yourself to take on that debt and looking to start tackling infrastructure. Whether it's a large scale 5-year program, I don't know what that looks like specifically, but I know that we've been working kind of tirelessly over the last couple of years to position ourselves financially to be able to do that, and I think that you're there. You've made smart business decisions, and you're then going to have that influx that can really go towards that initiative. So I know that we've been talking a lot about it. We've done evaluations of different funding sources, and from an administrative standpoint, we're kind of mapping it out for you, that's kind of your timeline. Any questions on that?
So what you're saying is when we're asked about the infrastructure / road program that we basically said we can't do because we didn't go forward with the sewer authority sale. But what we said was we would evaluate all of our other options in looking at how we set ourselves up in 24, 25. We should be able to begin that program with the monies and being able to borrow because we have a solid debt rating.
Right.
Yeah. I'm saying that you're going to be at that exactly, Tina. That's kind of the time frame where I think you go out and you start looking at your options to take on additional debt. And you will most likely, if everything continues on the path that it's going on, barring any, uncertainties that we aren't aware of, should have the revenue base to take on that additional debt and start completing a portion of the road infrastructure program without having to do a large tax increase. Again, that's not large scale, quickly,
right,
kind of strategically over a long period of time, but starting to tackle the issues that we know are there.
Right.
And the reality is we've already set ourselves up with a relationship now with the sewer authority that in the meantime, there is still the option that we can tackle some of the infrastructure in coordination with the work that they're currently doing.
Especially with the tools and the resources that you're giving us with the machines and the equipment through our capital purchases. Yes. It all plays into the decisions.
The strategic plan that we put in place 4 years ago to get us to where we are.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
One other silver lining that I will tell you is that the main work that PICO and Aqua have been doing throughout the borough that has caused a lot of headaches, if we have a plan that says 3 years from now, we're going to be doing a lot of road work on our own, we will have ordinances in place, and we will make it a very unpopular decision to tear up our roadways after we have done multi-million dollars worth of work to them. So the areas that Aqua and Pico will do for us will be good. And then the areas that they intend to do, they're going to do before we come in and do our road work. So it's a win-win. They've, believe it or not, when we did the math the other day, just the work that they're doing probably saved us close to $1 million recently, just in mill and overlay.
Ray, can you talk a little bit about that? One of the things that, we're hearing on the street is, oh, you're piecemealing it and the roads look ugly. Can you talk a little bit about aesthetics versus drivability and what Pico and Aqua are doing for us?
Yeah, some municipalities are doing this as part of their road plan, which is when they make decisions on what gets milled and overlaid as part of these main replacement plans, they want to get the center of the roads done and leave the parking lanes unfinished. That's where your infrastructure is going to go in anyway. That's where your storm sewer lines are going to go in. That's where the curb work is going to go in later on. Do the center of the road. That's where all the traffic's going to go, and the main usage is going to be. To try to come in and spend money, lots of money on parking lanes, just doesn't make sense, especially when you have so many properties that have old infrastructure and that are going to have that infrastructure replaced. If we were to institute a road program a year and a half ago and we spent $10 million on it, what would streets like Harry Street look like now when Aqua and Pico had to come in and rip them up? And they have a 3-year plan, but if they get a power outage situation, or they get a bad winter, or they get multiple main breaks in Lower Merion and have to spend 3.5 years there, our infrastructure gets thrown to the wayside until
Right.
they're ready to come in here. So they'll have an incentive based on the ordinances that we're talking about to make sure that you don't come in and do anything to the roads once they're completed. They do look checkerboard, I understand that, and piecemeal now, but they're very usable. The areas that they come through, they are very usable, and they're to PennDOT spec, and they may last a lot longer than people think. And this is no different than what the road program in the past has done here, which has just been mill and overlay. It's just been on the taxpayer dime rather than on Aqua and Pico.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
Okay, are there, so next steps for the budget, again, we will make any revisions, finalize numbers based off our conversations this evening. We will be working on budget narratives and accomplishments and goals through the month of October. The budget presentation, again, to the public will formally be done on November 3rd. And then you'll have in front of you proposed budget for authorization and advertisement in November, and then adoption in December. So that is the rest of the budget cycle. Again, as a reminder that there are some numbers in this draft budget that are in fact estimates. I should get them final numbers again over the course of October. And then most importantly, for the residents of the Borough of Conshohocken, we are proposing no tax increase for fiscal year 2022. So the last thing that I need from council this evening for the public portion of the meeting is just direction that you are comfortable and would like that the overall percentage of the budget to increase around that 3% threshold, if that is still accurate. Just need confirmation.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important with what's going on in the world. So I think a 3% increase is worth it.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions from council? Britt, do we have any written public comments this evening?
Yes, we did receive one written public comment. Adrian Cerna, 245 East Hector Street, wrote, I live directly behind Aubrey Collins Park, and I can personally vouch that the basketball court is used virtually every day by children, teens, and adults. The residents value it as a public place to get fresh air and exercise and would greatly appreciate its repair.
Okay,
Thanks, Britt.
well, it's in there, so that's a good thing. Is there any public comment on the call for this evening? President Leonard, I do not have anything else for this portion of the meeting.
Okay, does anyone else on council have anything else?
No.
No.
Okay,
Just a reminder that we're going to log off of this meeting. Thank you very much. And we're quickly going to log on for what I promise is going to be a quick executive session.
Mhm.
okay,
So go into your materials and just click the additional link. Thank you.
thank you.